Known as the most arrogant demon king who fears absolutely no one, Merlin Lucifer only has one wife. Yet here he is, playing the part of a CEO, fast asleep in the middle of a room hundreds of square meters wide. A quirky girl runs up to admire him, swooning over Merlin's seductive sleeping face. Glancing at his rosy lips that seem to be missing a few kisses, she swallows hard and gathers all her courage to lean in close. Just as she intends to steal Merlin's first kiss, with the steamy scene about to start, screams erupt from outside. "Long live the goddess of light, the invincible holy army! Demon King Lucifer, come out and face your death!" A formidable army in shimmering armor, carrying the sun flag that illuminates the motherland, stands arrayed outside the palace. The girl turns away, cursing the Holy Church soldiers in annoyance. "Showing up just in time to ruin my fun," she grumbles, turning back and pretending she didn't hear them, resuming her dark deed. But a hand rests on her lips to stop her. Merlin has opened his eyes. "Lilith, what are you doing? Do you want to—" Lilith opens her mouth, intending to bite Merlin's finger, but he pulls it back immediately because he knows this girl all too well. With a bunch of flies buzzing outside his palace, Merlin has to deal with them. Lilith rubs the spot on her forehead where he flicked her and pouts. "Just a few more centimeters and we would have sealed the deal." Merlin smirks and pulls Lilith into his arms, surprising her. "You silly girl. People in this world might be able to succeed, but a surprise attack on me is fundamentally non-existent." Lilith takes the opportunity while being close to cop a feel of Merlin's chest, but the moment of enjoyment doesn't last long before voices echo from outside again. "Goddess, long live the light, the invincible holy army. Demon King Lucifer, come out and face your death." Every time things get to the good part, they interrupt. Lilith, furious, pulls out a 3-meter-long divine willow whip, ready to go to town. "I'll skin them one by one!" Merlin immediately stops her, wrapping his arm around her, and the anger on Lilith vanishes as if it had never existed. On the final day of his term, "You're still going to bother me while I'm the Demon King? Then I suppose I'll have to personally see you all off." Merlin aggressively leads Lilith out to slaughter them. Outside, monsters and humans are fighting fiercely and intensely, yet these humans, clad in shimmering armor like the army from before, Merlin stands high above, sighing, while Lilith secretly wishes they were both putting in that much vigorous effort in bed. Merlin looks around. He notices an exceptionally dominant individual, guessing it's this generation's hero. She is screaming while battling a giant stone golem. One slash takes it down, but in Merlin's eyes, she is still green. The Holy Church side cheers at the heroine's display. But they haven't even finished celebrating the victory over the golem for long before a giant worm lunges up from beneath their feet. Two guys hug each other, screaming and peeing their pants in terror. The hero flies in, uses one move to take down the worm. Right before the stunned faces of the two guys, after saving them, she kindly warns them, "On the battlefield, you must always be careful and never get distracted." The two guys are teary-eyed, thanking heaven and earth for being born in the same era as a goddess who is as gentle and beautiful as she is powerful. The hero points her sword at the monsters and declares, "I, the 333rd generation hero, Alice Claudia, am here to declare the suppression of Demon King Lucifer." At her command, waves of soldiers rush forward as if energized. In the distance, far from the chaotic battle, a pot-bellied man leading the holy army watches with his troops. These useless cannon-fodder peasants dare to get in the hero's way? Damn it! The hooked-nosed old man follows up, twisting his tongue 10 times to calm the bishop down. "Those peasants aren't worth the money anyway. Our elite Holy Church force hasn't even made a move yet. The vanguard is nothing more than cannon fodder. They only wait until they're all dead and the enemy's strength is worn down before the Holy Church's troops charge in to claim the credit." But the old, hooked-nosed man worries that Alice isn't Merlin's match. The bishop laughs loudly as if victory is already in his pocket. Even if Alice can't beat Merlin, he isn't afraid because in the heavens, the bishop has prepared a secret weapon. On the battlefield, Alice struggles to fight while observing the vanguard, discovering they have been surrounded by the monsters. She sees the situation is dire and rushes to rescue them, but a loud boom rings out. The Holy Church bishop looks up to the sky as if welcoming a god descending. This is the key siege weapon that the Holy Church spent 100 years painstakingly crafting. Its power is unrivaled. A giant white whale floats in the sky. The bishop confidently calls it the greatest, most awe-inspiring weapon, representing the Holy Church's highest masterpiece. In short, it's the best at everything. Both the vanguard and the monsters stop for a few seconds at this unexpected appearance. Alice looks up, mouth agape, wondering if that white whale is a monster or an ally. The bishop doesn't think much of it. He raises his staff to control the white whale. Watch closely as the greatest masterpiece in Holy Church history displays its power for the first time right here. The whale's mouth opens, white smoke pouring out. The bishop crazily fires the attack toward the battlefield. Alice tries her best to run toward the vanguard, wanting to save them before that cannon wipes them all out. Merlin stands high above, frowning, judging. That looks like absolute garbage. A deafening explosion sounds, followed by thick smoke and dust. The Holy Church bishop shouts, thinking he has won. "Tremble under the iron heel of the Holy Church. Lucifer, in the name of the goddess of light, I will send you demons to hell." Alice props herself up with her sword, staggering, surprised she's still alive and unscathed. Standing in front of Alice are Merlin and Lilith, looking majestic. Both had blocked that attack just now. Saving the unlucky vanguard wasn't because Merlin suddenly developed a conscience, but because wherever he is, life and death are under his control. "Move aside, you losers. Leave them to me. The third demon king, Lucifer, has arrived!" The bishop is furious, hitting his staff on the ground repeatedly. "Impossible!" The power of that single strike was stronger than a Saint Tia technique. How could it have been blocked like that? The hooked nose guy is shaking like a leaf, wanting to retreat, but the bishop is still talking tough. He is confident in the white whale's body, made of rare, precious metals and reinforced with the goddess's energy. "Holy blood white whale, charge! Give them a physical purification. That annoying Lucifer 3, even if he can resist light cannons, he can't fight the impact of its body." Merlin rests his hand on the hilt of his sword and scoffs. These guys are truly weak, yet they love to hallucinate about their own power. But given how dedicated they are, I'll reluctantly respond by drawing my blade. The white whale rushes in, opening its mouth full of sharp fangs. Before 2 seconds have even passed, the white whale has been sliced in two by Merlin, a perfect 50-50 split, not off by even 1 millimeter. The wind from the sword strike blows Lilith's hair back, leaving her entranced, while Alice is still standing there with her jaw dropped, unable to close it. Merlin does a cool 360-degree sword spin after peeling and scaling the white whale. The bishop and everyone present stand frozen as the two halves of the white whale crash to the ground. Merlin sheathed his sword, thanking the audience for their rapt attention, before turning his gaze toward the cult leader and his elite squad, who had never seen a day of battle. "Now it's your turn, you pathetic trash. In the name of the first demon king, Lucifer, I grant you the supreme honor of being finished off." The cult leader turned, desperate for a savior. "Alice!" he commanded her with a frantic, desperate tone. "If you don't step in now, we're all going to die. Save us!" Alice seemed to be under a spell, oblivious to everything. The cult leader, who had nearly killed his own vanguard and himself, lunged at Merlin. "As a hero, I shall punish you, Demon King." Merlin stood perfectly still, unfazed. His eyes glowed, the pupils sharpening like a cat's. With a single stomp of his foot, a powerful gale blew Alice far away. Merlin gathered his momentum and drew his blade in a graceful semicircular arc. Alice stood frozen, watching the sword's path toward the cultists. Merlin hadn't even spared her a glance. A deafening blast and a cloud of dust filled the sky following Merlin's strike. The cult leader's head fell into a pool of blood, and the entire holy army was wiped out in an instant. As for Alice, she had already lost consciousness at some point. Who knows what exciting adventures await me now alongside Lord Merlin? Speaking of Merlin and Lucifer, he was a transmigrator, forcibly summoned to this strange world by an altar. Back in his old world, he was a nobody, but here, Merlin was born with overwhelming power, destined to be the great demon king of the first palace, the most arrogant ruler of all. But that terrifying power came with a curse, a congenital heart condition. With every passing second, Merlin's life was filled with chest pain. Heaven took pity on him and gifted him the magic blade, Myriad Appearances. It possessed a strange magic that extended his life, provided he killed enemies of great strength. The stronger the foe, the greater the relief. That was why Merlin began to look forward to the appearance of the strongest beings in this world. He believed that defeating them would break the curse completely. And so, until his term ended, Merlin only ever encountered a giant whale, which helped ease his heart pain. Merlin looked up at the sky. Everything was finally over. The demon palace no longer needed him, and it was time for Merlin to head out and see what the world outside was like. After the Great War came the parting. Lilith was heartbroken, unable to bear the thought of leaving Merlin. He gently stroked her face, urging her to take good care of herself while he was away. But, Lilith trembled, sobbing as she begged Merlin not to go. Since birth, she had been glued to him, never leaving his side. Merlin tenderly patted her head. She was clearly grown up, yet she still loved to act like a spoiled child. Merlin could indulge Lilith in anything, but not this. If I keep staying here, I will eventually die from the curse. Do you want me to die? No! I don't want that! And I don't want to leave you, Merlin! Lilith's determination was so fierce that she would have gladly sacrificed her own life to ease his pain. Merlin glared, flicking her forehead hard, making her rub the spot. You silly girl, how could I ever bring myself to hurt you? Faced with Merlin's gentleness, Lilith pushed even harder. I don't care. I don't want to be apart from you. As long as you're by my side, even if you become a cripple, I'll take care of you. The word cripple hit a sore spot for Merlin, yet he spoke softly, every word hitting home. Lilith, I like you too, but I have to leave to break this heart curse. Once I've finished this, I will return immediately and stay with you forever. Merlin had given her a long, poetic speech, but all Lilith heard were the 4 words, I like you too. That alone was enough to make her so happy. She was practically ready to start a family right then and there. Lilith cleared her throat, regaining her mysterious air to give Merlin some sincere advice that piqued his curiosity. There are so many side chicks out there. Don't you dare let them bewitch you. Otherwise, I'll kill them all, leaving not a single one behind. I'll rip out their hair, skin them, throw them into lava, and grill them until they're nothing but dry husks. I won't leave a scrap behind. Lilith spoke those cold-blooded words with a happy, innocent expression, which gave Merlin the chills. To think she was a genuine yandere. Merlin made an excuse to slip away quickly. Otherwise, Lilith wouldn't let him take a single step alone. Passing by Alice, Merlin paused. The girl was sleeping while mumbling, "So delicious. 6-piece durian." Merlin was speechless. Even in a coma, she dreamed of food. Setting that aside, Merlin hoisted Alice onto his shoulder anyway, under Lilith's laser beam glare. Merlin, what are you doing? Why do you have to bring that woman with you when you leave? Could it be that some green tea seductress has already bewitched you? Merlin immediately denied it, saying he only saw Alice as a tool. After all, he'd been in the palace for thousands of years and had no idea what the outside world was like. He needed a lackey for the road, and as it happened, Alice was a hero. Weaker than him, but stronger than most, with decent stamina and willpower. She was worth using. Lilith was swayed by Merlin's explanation, but she still pouted. But she's a hero. You should just kill her. Lilith, my term has ended. I'm no longer the Demon King. There's no need to treat heroes as enemies anymore. With that, he carried Alice away. Saying goodbye and goodbye, Lilith watched Merlin's retreating back. She couldn't control her feelings. She shook her head violently to clear away those wild thoughts. It's not time to be discouraged. The next time I meet Merlin will be the moment we fulfill our pact. Thinking about Merlin saying he liked her, Lilith jumped for joy. Was this a confession? Merlin, really? Before leaving, he had to say things that got her hopes up. After thinking it over, Lilith became determined not to disappoint Merlin's confession by training hard to be a perfect future wife. Wait, Alice. Lying on Merlin's back, she dreamt a long dream about failure. Ever since leaving the mountain, she hadn't encountered a single good thing, save for being buttered up by that cult leader. Alice had foolishly trusted the scum of the Holy See, thinking herself to be a match for Merlin, until she saw Merlin slay a white whale, many times stronger than her, with just one hand. Only then did Alice realize he hadn't even considered her a threat. Before she descended the mountain, her master had warned her that she was still inexperienced, and that the powerful figures out there were no joke. Relying on her current skills would surely lead to many hardships. Now, after such a crushing defeat, Alice felt her cultivation path was hopeless and dreary. Merlin walked a stretch to the beach and saw some wooden boats that had been smashed to pieces. Alice leaned against a coconut tree and looked for a way to make a new boat. Who knows how much time passed, but Alice remained fast asleep until some thick, viscous, colorful liquid dripped onto her face, waking her up. Gah! A set of sharp teeth was right in front of her. Alice immediately tucked tail and ran from the massive direwolf. The direwolf opened its mouth viciously. Its massive frame easily closed the distance. Alice shut her eyes, bracing for death. She figured she'd be unconscious for another few hours after this one. From the bushes, something zoomed out and clamped the direwolf's muzzle shut. Merlin heroically pinned its head to the ground. "Don't mess around. This woman already belongs to me. You aren't allowed to eat her, get it?" The direwolf lay still on the ground, its tail wagging like it had met its master. Alice stood frozen, annoyed at being saved by Merlin again, but for some reason her heart wouldn't stop pounding, faster and faster. Alice watched Merlin play with the direwolf as if it were a golden retriever. Furthermore, the radiant expression and saintly smile on his face made her feel, Merlin isn't a villain. Alice immediately shook her head in denial. "No way, he's a demon king. Even if he saved me, he must have some sinister plot." After Merlin said goodbye to the direwolf, he spoke up. "Little brave warrior, your name is Alice, isn't it?" Alice immediately drew her ice sword, her whole body stiffening in defense. "What exactly do you want? What do you want?" "Facing a woman like her," he replied. "You tell me, what could I possibly want?" Looking at Merlin's expression, Alice guessed he was acting on evil desires due to her beauty. Merlin continued his self-introduction while Alice had already rushed forward to attack, not waiting for him to finish. He used 2 fingers to easily clamp Alice's ice sword, squinted at her, and lifted her chin, leaving her dazed. "Beautiful lady, from now on, your body belongs to me." The top-tier pickup line almost made Alice lose her clothes, but she immediately swatted his hand away. She covered her chest with both arms. "Don't you dare insult me, Demon King. I, Alice, as a brave warrior, will never bow down to dark evil forces like you." Merlin shrugged, shattering Alice's delusions. He wasn't playing the role of a lover with her. This was a kidnapping. Since he had just performed a kidnapping, the protocol for Merlin's intimidation was a bit off, but it still left Alice feeling somewhat flustered. Merlin leaned in close, staring straight into her eyes. "I'm actually quite gentle, you know." In Alice's head, she felt like Merlin was trying to tell her to be obedient and not resist. "Tell me, what do you want after all?" Merlin leaned his face close to Alice's again, stroking her hair locks, his voice incredibly suggestive. "A little later, I want to use your body to do a few things, the exact things the demon race usually does to women, those inhumane things." Alice felt like she had been struck by lightning. This time, she was really being threatened. She had heard that some demon clans force human women to bear their children. That meant Alice was about to become a breeding tool for Merlin, and she hadn't even had a single relationship yet. Alice hadn't even accepted reality before she was dragged away by Merlin. She immediately swatted his hand away for the second time. "Don't touch me, you degenerate demon king!" Facing a woman who was disobedient, just like Lilith, Merlin lost patience. He lifted Alice into the air and tossed her onto the boat. Afterward, he reached a hand out toward her with a lecherous smile. "All right, let's get started." Alice cursed in fury. Even though it was her first time, doing it in the middle of the sea was way too stimulating. Out in the vast open ocean, the young girl's hair danced in the wind. Alice held her blade to her throat, determined that even in death, she wouldn't be a baby-making tool for Merlin. Merlin glanced down at the 2 oars near her and kicked the handle, making it fly up. It struck Alice right under the chin, causing her to yelp, "Ah!" Her sword even flew the hell away. Merlin felt helpless, wondering how this idiot could have become a brave warrior. Alice, in pain, felt aggrieved. "Whatever you want to do, just do it. Why be so rough?" Merlin shrugged. He had met many women, and he didn't descend to the point of being interested in a flat-screen TV like Alice. "That piece of iron you had stuffed in your chest earlier almost killed me when I was carrying you. Next time you want to pat it, can you use something softer?" Alice covered her chest. So she didn't want to expose her padding, yet she tried to justify it, calling it secret silver armor. Merlin clutched his face and burst into laughter. "Secret silver armor worn inside as chest padding? Ha ha, brave warrior. If your predecessors knew, they'd probably die a second time from crying." Alice changed the subject, unable to continue discussing her 2 lemons, and asked what Merlin's true purpose was. He pointed at the 2 oars beside Alice and stretched his arms out, mapping out a grand plan. They would cross the Orkney Strait, conquer the Great Sea, and set foot on the continent. Alice was stunned into silence. For the first time, she lowered her voice, trying to advise Merlin not to be delusional. The Holy Sea's warships set out from Bristol port, with hundreds of people rowing, plus wind magic, and it still takes them a day and a night to cross the Orkney Strait to the Dead Swamp. They even coat the warships in a layer of dragon dung and urine to avoid the countless enemies in the strait. So, just relying on the two of us to take turns rowing, it's impossible to survive outside the strait. Besides, once we encounter monsters and our stamina is drained, we'll be slaughtered. Got it, Merlin? He chuckled at Alice's seriousness. Little brave warrior, you misunderstood something. When did I say we would take turns rowing? Merlin had warned her beforehand. He would use Alice's body so she could row the boat all by herself, while Merlin's job was also very important, standing at the bow of the boat, breathing in the sea breeze. Huh? Alice's voice echoed across the sea. She'd rather offer herself up to Merlin than keep rowing until her arms broke. 3 days had passed, and aside from a slight change in the weather, nothing had happened. Not a single monster had appeared to attack them, which left Alice curious. Merlin stood at the bow and declared that the sea was a terrifying place if you wandered too close to the powerful ones. You'll get torn to shreds, he said. Alice didn't quite get it at first. Merlin had to speak plainly. Some kind of predator had been tailing them the whole time, and the smaller beasts stayed away because of it. He warned Alice to sit tight. If she fell overboard, he couldn't help her, since he didn't know how to swim. Alice had heard that Merlin once defeated a sea demon, and it was true, all because that stupid demon tried to steal the rotten herring from Merlin's storage. That creature had come onto land searching for him, but the one approaching now was much bigger. No sooner had Merlin finished speaking than a thunderous boom erupted, and a massive column of water shot up from the sea, making Alice's heart skip a beat. She slipped on the giant sea dragon like she was on a playground slide and was tossed off the boat. Merlin gave the boat a kick with his foot, and it landed back on the water as smooth as silk. Both of them landed right on top of it. The sea dragon roared, sounding like it was summoning thunder. Alice was scared to death. Lucifer, the three of us. What are we supposed to do now? Seeing Merlin standing there like a statue, Alice thought to herself, this is the end of the line for us. This snake-necked sea dragon? Merlin chuckled, pointing at the dragon. It looks like garbage. The neck is huge, but the chest is tiny. Just looking at it, you can tell it's an idiot. The sea dragon seemed to understand him and grew furious at being body-shamed. It slammed its tail into the sea, sending waves crashing against their tiny boat. Alice had no idea how to deal with this kind of natural disaster. And even if she did, it's not like she could actually do anything about it. Merlin let out a huff. Haven't eaten in 3 days, I'm hungry. Time to go hunting. Merlin drew his sword, facing the charging sea dragon alone. Swing! The sound of the blade leaving the scabbard was ear-splitting. A falling raindrop was sliced clean in two, and so was the sea dragon's fate. The strike left everyone there, save for Merlin, completely stunned. The dragon's eyes dimmed, the fire in them extinguished. The sea grew quiet, no longer raging as it had before. Merlin sheathed his sword and walked back inside, so calm and effortless. Seeing Alice still standing there with her jaw dropped, Merlin pinched her cheek hard. Stop spacing out. Start rowing. We need to go. But it's still... Alice pointed frantically at the sea dragon, still looming in front of them. Just then, a clicking sound rang out. The dragon's entire body fell apart into pieces and splashed into the water. Merlin's face darkened. Still what? Its blood will attract man-eating sharks. Do you want to stay here and be their dinner? Alice scrambled to grab the oars, following orders while thinking to herself, Merlin is still just as overwhelmingly strong, whether on land or at sea. If I really let Merlin get to people, the consequences would be unthinkable. Alice cautiously asked why Merlin wanted to leave the Demon King's palace. Merlin grumbled, telling her not to call him the Demon King anymore. I'm not the Demon King anymore. You should call me Captain Merlin. Alice froze up, making the atmosphere incredibly awkward. Merlin felt so embarrassed he wanted to crawl into the ocean. He pretended, saying Alice was boring and didn't know how to take a joke. I'm just the strongest in the world, so I'm bored and want to see the sights. Deep down, Merlin didn't want Alice to know he'd been impeached by the Demon Council. It was too embarrassing. Alice, however, actually believed him. She probed into his strength. Are you at the saint level? Merlin didn't know. How could a Demon King's power be measured by human rankings? Alice realized just how crazy strong he was and added that he must have worked harder than ordinary people because the old sayings go, genius is 90% perspiration and 10% inspiration. Merlin laughed until he almost couldn't breathe. Stupid girl, you actually believe that? For a creature strong from birth like Merlin, those sayings were just sweet lies meant to trick fools like Alice into being stepping stones, working themselves to death until they were bled dry. For a mediocre person like Alice, if she stepped into the real world and understood herself, just doing what she was capable of was enough. Alice felt like Merlin sounded just like her master. She just wanted to know when she could become stronger than him. Merlin, naturally, had no idea. In the entire demon race, only he could pull out this magic sword. That was why he was the top demon king, the proof of absolute talent and potential. No matter how much effort one put in, it couldn't make up for that. Alice, struck by the two words absolute talent, hesitated and asked, Merlin, how did you become this strong? Can you tell me? Merlin found it hard to explain. Born into the demon race, he thought he'd just spend every day playing with his younger sister. Merlin's mother was the second Lucifer known to humanity. But during the 197th Crusade of the Holy See, she was killed in battle. Since then, Merlin and his sister had relied on each other. But the demon realm was cruel. It was a place where the big fish eat the small. From then on, Merlin resolved to become stronger than anyone else to protect his sister. He had slashed ancient giants on snowy mountains and fought the bull-headed shaman gods in the deep jungles. I even jumped into molten lava to slay abyss demons. Merlin trained his swordsmanship without pause, swinging a rusty chipped blade every day, coming within an inch of death countless times. In the end, relying on his own strength, he killed those who bullied him and his sister, seizing the throne of the demon race. By the time Merlin came to his senses, he had become so strong he was unbeatable. That's how it was. My past is basically an epic tale of a prince seeking revenge. Alice heard this and felt something was off. Merlin said he was a genius, but the process sounded 100% like hard work. Merlin shook his finger. Not hard work? My dream was a life of luxury and leisure without a care in the world. How could I not have worked hard? Ever since I was born, I've been ridiculously overpowered. You get me, Alice? Merlin said, spinning some tall tale. Alice, feeling like she'd just been swept up in his nonsense, got so annoyed she stopped rowing. Merlin kept right on lecturing, claiming that in the past he was actually weak. He had power but no clue how to use it, so everyone treated him like trash until he finally had an epiphany. Once he figured out how to use his energy, he became insanely strong overnight, like he just woke up from a nap as the world's greatest champion. Alice was left completely speechless. Too fed up to even argue with Merlin's protagonist syndrome energy. Seeing she wasn't buying it, Merlin waved his hand, ordering her to get back to rowing. Merlin leaned back, his thoughts drifting to the curse. He'd barely been out of the temple for a week and had already run into a holy ranked sea serpent. Leaving home was definitely the right move. On top of that, Merlin felt like his heart stayed remarkably calm whenever he was near Alice. They kept going until finally they set foot on solid ground. It looked like Dublin territory, but the place was eerily empty. Nothing like he expected. Merlin turned to Alice, grumbling, "Where on earth are we? Didn't I tell you we weren't supposed to land until we hit Dublin territory? How are we not even seeing a tiny village?" Alice crawled out of the boat, finally getting the chance to call Merlin a blind idiot. She collapsed on the ground, limbs aching, and watched with resentment as Merlin strutted around, full of energy. "You absolute jerk! I did all the rowing!" A list of insults filled Alice's head. The moment she mastered her master's ice aura techniques, she was going to crush his skull. Merlin suddenly turned back toward her. She thought he was going to carry her, but nope, not a chance. "You're my slave now. That nasty attitude. Are you trying to stage a rebellion?" Merlin reached out. Alice glared at him, not expecting him to grab her face. He stretched her cheeks out like a piece of squishy rubber. Merlin let go, then yanked them again, making her wince in pain. "Don't do that again. This actually is Dairen. Just not the port, it's the northern coastline." "There," Merlin said, nodding with satisfaction. He'd seen how hard Alice worked at rowing, so he was just giving her a little reward. Alice glared at him and cursed under her breath. "I don't want your stupid reward." "Fine then. Goodbye, Miss Alice. It's been a lovely sea voyage." Alice watched him walk away, simmering with fury. She swore to heaven that if she ever got the chance, she'd run him through with a sword. Merlin walked a few paces and stopped. suddenly remembering his pockets were empty. He was too used to the aristocratic lifestyle, so he'd left home without a penny. Merlin's gaze darted over Alice, making her jump. She was terrified he could read her mind, but Merlin was actually thinking about when he carried her. He'd felt that metal plate on her chest. It looked like Midrin armor. People in this world were all about using each other. Besides, the fact that even Merlin felt a sharp prick from the armor meant it had to be high quality and worth a fortune. Merlin chuckled, did a complete 180, and charged back at Alice, clearing his throat as he held out his hand. "My beautiful lady, with the special bond we share, squabbling is beneath us. Why don't you offer up your most precious possession to me?" Alice instinctively covered her chest, but Merlin coldly ordered her to take it off and stop resisting. Alice scrambled away like a crab, trying to block him from stripping her. A piercing scream ripped through the air. Alice sobbed, clutching her fabric cover-up. "Wah, this is my first time. Please be gentle." Merlin looked at the loot in his hand and smirked. "You think you're something special? Come back and talk to me when you've actually developed, kid." This is what I needed. Alice was left completely stunned while Merlin hopped away, excited to sell the hero's Midrin armor. "All right, half-dressed lady, long road ahead. Maybe we'll meet again." Alice watched him go, burning with rage. He'd robbed her blind and just walked away like he owned the place. She was shaking with anger, hot tears dripping onto her hands as she looked up at the sky and screamed. Alice swore she would never, ever see Merlin again. Meanwhile, the bra-snatching bandit, Merlin was just strolling along, whistling, wondering what kind of interesting people he'd run into next. 1 year later, on the outskirts of Wells, Darren, two men were hiding in a bush, waiting for something. The guy in the hat was losing his patience, tired of waiting to make a buck. The red-haired guy told him to shut up and keep watching. Suddenly, someone actually appeared. The hat guy was thrilled at first, but when he saw the person walking up, looking like a homeless man leaning on a walking stick, he was disappointed. But the redhead's face changed as he checked the wanted poster in his hand, grinning like he'd hit the jackpot. Sometimes people look like they're worth nothing, but they're actually worth a fortune. At that moment, Merlin was dragging himself along, starving. He hadn't changed his clothes in a year. A piece of paper flew through the air and slapped him right in the face. Merlin peeled it off to see his own face staring back at him, along with the charge for dining and dashing. Merlin sighed. He'd only skipped out on a few meals and he was already a wanted criminal? Thinking about it, the human world was just too materialistic. You couldn't do a thing without money. Stepped onto the road. And of course, they were bandits. "Hey kid, stop right there. This road was built by me and the trees were planted by me. Pay up." Merlin didn't even bother, brushing past them like a gust of wind. The redhead got annoyed at being ignored. "What's your problem? Are you deaf?" Merlin turned back, his voice weak and raspy. "Were you talking to me?" "No, duh. You want to pass? Hand over your valuables." The redhead realized the most valuable thing around was actually Merlin himself, worth 5,000 gold pieces on the poster. He drew a dagger, licked the blade, and said, "Merlin, surrender now. Don't make this hard on yourself, unless you want to find out where this blade ends up on your body." Merlin sighed. He was already starving, and now he had to deal with two lunatics. "Look, I just want to clarify one thing. You guys are really, really sure you want to mess with me? Because if you are, I'm giving you some advice. If you even touch a single hair on my head, you're dead men walking." Merlin's starving, dull eyes suddenly sharpened. But the two idiots, of course, didn't believe a word of it. They even wanted to show off their fruit-peeling knife skills. The hat guy tossed an apple into the air, and the redhead started spinning his dagger around, peeling the whole thing until it was perfectly bare. I even managed to keep the peel in one long, continuous strip. See that? The boss's technique is unrivaled. One attack from him is worth 20 from anyone else. Scared yet? They're lining up one after another just to see him perform. It's amazing. The guy with the hat is shouting, cheering his boss on. Our senior's technique is unrivaled. While others attack once, he attacks 20 times. Scared yet? Merlin watched a pre-peeled apple floating in the air, his mouth watering involuntarily. It was the first free meal he'd had in days. The redhead spotted Merlin. Seeing Merlin ignoring him to focus on the apple, the redhead flew into a rage and charged. Seeing the blade coming for him, Merlin drew his sword in a flash. The redhead suddenly widened his eyes as a thin red line appeared across his throat. Merlin caught the apple and ate it with satisfaction to recharge, while the redhead's head rolled off his shoulders. The guy in the cap immediately used his talent to run like the wind, begging Merlin not to kill him as he fled. Merlin couldn't be bothered. Killing weaklings like that would only waste his energy without doing anything for his heartache. Suddenly, a cloud of white smoke rose from the redhead's corpse, revealing a goblin. Merlin knew all along they were disguised as humans to rob people. The plan failed, and they were afraid of being punished by the Imperial Army, but honestly, that had nothing to do with Merlin. I was too busy thinking about how to find a cushy, high-paying job to scrape by. Back at the Goblin Cave, the guy in the cap scrambled back, shouting, "We're the Tiger Squad! We need to see His Majesty!" The Goblin Guard let him in immediately, not forgetting to warn the tiger that if he didn't have anything important, he'd better not bother him. The Goblin Lord was sitting inside, leisurely eating steak and drinking red wine. Seeing the tiger back, he asked about the money. The tiger bowed his head, trembling. 10,000 apologies, Your Majesty. I couldn't get the money. No money? Then why did you come back? Do you want me to grant you death? The tiger immediately spoke up. My lord, please stay calm. There's an urgent matter to report. My senior was killed by a single strike from Merlin. That human didn't even fully draw his sword. He barely even unsheathed it, and he killed my senior. The Goblin Lord managed a fake smile while his heart bled. He was furious that humans had been suppressing them for so long. It seemed they were looking to revolt. Even going after our experts now, huh? Merlin strolled into the city. He looked handsome, but inside, he was stressed because he was broke. The city entry fee had taken his last 2 coins. Merlin never expected that spending money would be so easy while earning it was so damn hard. A year ago, after Merlin swiped Alice's Midran armor shard, he started living the high life. He lived in his own private house, hired a top-tier butler and maid, and ate gourmet meals 3 times a day. Not only that, he enjoyed horse racing, betting 1,000 gold coins every time, but never once did Merlin win. In the end, he was buried in debt, his assets seized, and he didn't have a single cent left. After much regret, though he had no money, he still went to a 5-star restaurant to eat and repent for free. As a result, Merlin's face was plastered on wanted posters all over Scotland. Since then, he's been wandering around, never having enough to eat or wear. Up until now, Merlin has had to perform on the street to earn his daily meals. Hey you, passing by, spare a moment to watch my performance. If you like it, please leave a little cash to boost my spirit. People were curious of what the hell performing meant, so they gathered around to watch Merlin show off some tricks, specifically, running so fast he left an afterimage. The crowd gasped in awe. Bro, that's awesome! Merlin felt his ego inflate. He stroked his hair and performed the second trick, a shadow clone. Look at these 5 poses, each one cooler than the next. Wow, amazing, it's my first time seeing a performance like this. Merlin sniffled, looking smug, and turned to hold out his hand for money. But to his surprise, the onlookers ignored him and slowly drifted away without giving him a penny. They were all heading off to watch the Holy Church's sermon. A guy in church robes stood up high, beating a drum and shouting, "The goddess of light is the eternal manifestation." While Merlin was still trying to pull people back, he noticed a kid happily eating candy walking by. Merlin immediately grabbed the kid by the head. Hey kid, you already watched the show. And you're just going to walk away like that? Give me 2 silver coins for food, I'm starving here. Merlin's terrifying expression scared the living daylights out of the boy. He recoiled, trying to get away. Mister, I don't have any money. When Merlin was called Mister, his face twitched. He grabbed the boy's shoulder, trying to explain, Little friend, do you know you just offended the most powerful man in the world? If I weren't merciful, you'd be dead right now. The boy looked like he'd been struck by lightning, nearly peeing his pants. Merlin asked for the boy's name. He was Henry. Suddenly, Merlin drew his sword, making Henry jump and stared at him with a dark look. Henry, huh? That's a nice name. Even though you offended me because I'm generous, I'll let it slide. Just 2 silver coins and we'll call it even. Henry tremblingly said he really didn't carry any money when he went out. Seeing that threats weren't working, Merlin switched to bribery. I know you want to learn my techniques. No problem. Just 2 silver coins and I can teach you. Henry's eyes lit up at the mention of supreme swordsmanship. The boy excitedly asked what move it was. Merlin said he would teach him the blade chop, but to Henry, that was just some basic, unsophisticated move. The kid gave a long, dismissive, meh. I thought it was something impressive. What a disappointment. Merlin was absolutely speechless. He didn't think even kids knew how to do a simple blade chop. but he still tried to convince him his version was different. Henry waved him off. "Save it, old man. Don't try to trick a kid. Since I watched your performance, here's a tip." Merlin excitedly reached out, but he only received 2 candies. Henry said goodbye to Merlin and added, "You're getting old. Don't waste your time trying to scam kids anymore." Merlin was shaking with rage and shouted after Henry, "You little brat! Don't you regret this? My martial arts techniques are so powerful, yet you look down on them. If you're ever in danger, don't you dare come begging me to save your life." Under normal circumstances, Merlin would have put a sword through Henry's head. But the kid's candy was actually pretty good, so he let it slide. As he was looking for other ways to make money, the preacher's sermon echoed in his ears, and the crowd cheered endlessly. Some people were even saying, "The great demon king of the first palace is so ugly he doesn't dare show his face. Not only is he ugly, he's a lecher." I heard that a year ago the 203rd hero was forced to his death. Merlin overheard the gossip about himself and twitched. What is that senile old fool blabbering about? Even if Alice misunderstood something, I have zero interest in her, you old geezer. The missionary suddenly raised his voice, shouting even more aggressively to praise the infinite wisdom of the goddess of light, claiming that without faith and devotion, the goddess wouldn't have survived until now. In these chaotic times, we could be in danger at any moment. If we aren't killed, we'll be sold into slavery. Only by putting our faith in the goddess can she keep us safe. Even though everything the old man said was utter nonsense and made-up drivel, it really grabbed everyone's attention. After running his mouth for so long, he finally reached his big sales pitch. The whole performance was just a PR stunt for his Bible. He demanded people buy it to earn the goddess's protection, and even offered a gratitude to the goddess discount, dropping the price from 10 gold coins down to just 1, only for today. Even though the scam was so obvious, everyone was supporting him. Some people even bought 10 copies. Merlin was frustrated by the old man's trickery and deception of the poor, but what he couldn't understand was why they were so stingy with a few measly coins for Merlin's performance, yet had no problem throwing money away on that book. The next day, Merlin went out job hunting again. This time, he walked into a restaurant to apply as a server. Merlin gracefully grabbed the owner's hand. "I will absolutely give my all for the growth of our shop, so my lady, please think very carefully about hiring me as your server here." The owner was smitten in an instant and accepted Merlin as a server. Merlin was satisfied. As expected, using his good looks is still the best method. The only thing was that this lady blushed way too easily. The owner's final question was, "Are you from the outskirts, or are you just a tourist?" Merlin replied that he could only work for 12 months. "Then I'll be traveling again." Since his heart condition wasn't resolved yet, Merlin would likely need to find a skilled healer to continue his treatment. Hearing that, the owner suddenly put on her glasses and pulled out a ledger to start calculating intently. After a while, she happily announced, "Considering the short-term contract, it includes room and board, plus 1 gold ingot per month. Also, if you can sell extra drinks, there's a bonus. What do you think?" Merlin was startled when he heard that. "A whole gold ingot? That's such a high salary." The owner had, of course, already calculated everything. This wasn't going to be an easy job. By evening, the tavern would be full of female customers, and how much liquor he could sell depended entirely on Merlin. The owner hoped that, to sell more booze, "Merlin, you'll use special charm tactics." "Like what?" Merlin asked, curious. When she brought this up, the owner grew shy. "You know, sweet talk and gentle gestures. Of course, you could even go to the lounge with them and mingle a bit. That's no problem." A lightning bolt struck Merlin's ears. In that moment, the mind of the invincible demon king Merlin could not believe it. Have I really fallen to the point of selling booze to make a living? No, wait. Selling my own precious body? Merlin was about to refuse, but the owner raised her offer. "If Mr. Merlin feels this work is too demanding for the salary, then we can consider giving you a raise." Merlin's gloomy expression instantly lit up. For the sake of money, his self-respect as a demon king vanished as if it never existed. "Why didn't you say so sooner? It's just flirting with some ladies. I love it." The two shook hands excitedly. Merlin changed into his uniform and got to work. This was his first new outfit in months. Anyway, no one here would recognize him, so he wasn't afraid of anything. But the truth is often hard to swallow. On a carriage, Alice was holding a wanted poster of Merlin, but the face had been torn off. Because the most important part was missing, the bounty hunt was proving quite difficult. A year ago, after her undergarment was swiped by Merlin, she had carried a 1,000-year grudge. To find him, Alice became a bounty hunter. Thanks to her background as a hero, on her very first day, she became the best. Over the year, Alice took on many bounties. Although the work was tough, the income wasn't bad, so every now and then, Alice was actually able to get the author to change her clothes unlike somebody else. Until one day, Alice received a wanted poster for Merlin. 5,000 gold coins. This guy is worth a fortune, isn't he? She decided to take the job. Thinking about having 5,000 gold coins to buy new clothes, Alice was overjoyed. Tempted by the money, she completely forgot her old grudge and her vow. She had no idea that the person she was hunting was Merlin himself. That evening was Merlin's first night on the job. He was extremely enthusiastic, dancing with a guest as a warm-up. "My lady, would you drink this glass for me?" "I wouldn't just drink a glass. I'd die for you." The other ladies present were also screeching, wanting to be pampered by Merlin. He tilted his lips into a charming smirk. "In that case, how about you all buy me a drink?" The girls went wild, rushing toward Merlin. The owner smiled with satisfaction. The moment she saw Merlin, she knew he was born for this job. "Mom, I'm home!" a child's voice echoed. Henry walked in, covered in dirt, with a disgruntled look on his face, which made the owner panic. "Henry, did you get into a fight?" Henry recognized Merlin and shouted loudly, "It's that scammer uncle!" After finding out his mother had hired Merlin, Henry was frustrated and immediately protested. "Mom, how could you let an uncle who only knows how to talk big and brag work here?" The owner shyly pulled Henry behind her back and apologized to Merlin on his behalf. Merlin smiled on the outside and said, "It's all right." But inside, he was incredibly annoyed. "Just watch. Henry is definitely going to make things difficult for me." Henry stomped his feet in anger. "I am not someone who brings trouble to others." Henry had been resentful for a long time, as his mother frequently let strange men into their home. He'd listened to neighbors gossiping about her, and other guys had told him she wasn't a good woman. Merlin caught the drift of the conversation. So, the beautiful tavern owner was a single mom. Life really wasn't easy for her. As for Henry, covered in dirt like that, he'd probably just gotten into a fight with the kids who were talking trash about his mom. "My mom is my own business," Merlin sighed, then started lecturing Henry. "Henry, if you really want to protect someone, you need to make yourself strong first. Without real power, you can't make others shut their mouths. If you want to protect your mom, what you need to do isn't chasing me away. It's about becoming the strongest person you can be to punish those who do wrong." Henry pointed his finger at Merlin, mocking him. "That guy is just someone scraping by, relying on a woman. What right does he have to preach to me? Even if I die out there, I'll never turn out like that trash." With that, Henry stomped out into the street, not caring that it was well past midnight. Merlin scoffed. "Kids that age are truly a handful." The tavern wasn't just filled with female customers. Men were there too, sitting around discussing the goblins. They claimed goblins had appeared in the village. Some folks saw them behind the mountains while gathering firewood, so it seemed true. The middle-aged man wearing iron armor swallowed, down a gulp of ale, then excitedly ordered another. Merlin nodded happily. The more they drank, the higher his tips would be. Merlin began showing off his skills, pouring liquor into a shaker, and then his arm moved as if vibrating, shaking continuously. Every girl probably loved this. He tossed the shaker behind his back, nimbly caught it, and finally poured the drink into a glass. It was clear and sparkling like a magical potion. The middle-aged man's eyes widened in awe. The young guy with him saw Merlin's fluid movements and asked for a drink too. Merlin smiled with satisfaction. "Serving you all is my pleasure." As the night grew late, the group of mercenaries sat down to split their reward. "Roger, you take 2,000 gold for this mission." Roger immediately refused, as they always split their rewards equally among the three of them. The young man with him looked at the girl, blushing. Finally, the two of them shyly confessed, "We're getting married. Once this mission is over, we're heading home to tie the knot." Roger looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. The worst part was that he had no idea those two had been hooking up behind his back. Merlin suddenly turned pale. If they were heading home, wouldn't they have to pass through where those goblins were? While the three of them were celebrating, Merlin approached and asked, "Excuse me, what exactly was your mission?" "Killing 100 goblins and bringing back their left ears. Why? Are you a goblin slayer too?" Merlin denied it immediately, claiming he just wanted to know how dangerous this mission was. The young man patted his chest confidently. Don't worry. We three brothers have fought side by side on countless battlefields. This little job is nothing. Merlin pondered something, but then happily went along with them. Well then, I'm counting on you all. That night, while everyone was fast asleep, the goblin hunters went to work. Roger wiped his sweat, dismissing the goblins as the weakest of the bunch. The young man warned him not to be so arrogant. There are only 37 left, then we head back. Roger scoffed. It's only a few more anyway. No need to worry like that. Suddenly, behind Roger, a massive, terrifying goblin fell from the sky, crushing Roger with its foot. The poor guy was flattened like a pancake, blood splattering everywhere. It was a heartbreaking scene. The young man regained his senses and looked at the giant goblin, full of hatred. You bastard! How dare you touch my friend? Heh heh, pathetic creature. Welcome to the Goblin Kingdom. A tiny goblin riding on the back of the giant one spoke up with an arrogant tone, claiming to be the Prime Minister of the High Goblin Realm. The young man was shocked. The goblin world was divided into high and low. Realms? The girl burst into tears, knowing they were both doomed tonight. The Prime Minister laughed gleefully. Beauty, don't cry, you'll be favored by His Majesty. But as for that guy, we have no reason to keep him alive. As soon as he finished speaking, he fired a fireball at the man. The man signaled his partner to use defensive magic. She summoned a magic circle beneath her feet, while he swung his sword using a fire technique to slice the fireball in half. As it vanished, he secretly thought, maybe I'm actually not so bad. But a second later, a massive goblin club slammed into him. The man was sent flying, crashing into the ground. The Prime Minister ordered the goblins to capture the girl. They swarmed her, despite her pleas. Even with his head smashed, the young man crawled up, seeing his fiancée about to be taken away. Let her go, you bastards! The Prime Minister chuckled with a sinister scheme. You want to save her? Fine, I'll give you a chance. You and I will make a little trade in the city center when night falls. The moonlit inn. Alice looked up at the sign, wondering, is this really the best inn in town? The noise coming from inside made her curious. She peeked in. Everyone was frantically cleaning, shouting at each other. Faster, faster, the stage isn't built yet, Tukuk. Appa won't show up. From a distance, a girl walked up beside Alice, making her jump. The innkeeper gently greeted the guest who had just entered. Is this your first time here? You look like you're from out of town, aren't you? Alice quickly produced her badge and replied, I'm an adventurer from Raceham. Do you have any rooms left? I'd like to stay for the night. Hearing this, the innkeeper responded enthusiastically. Oh, an adventurer. Of course we have rooms. Please follow me. She quickly followed the innkeeper's directions until they stopped in front of room 206. The innkeeper turned to Alice and said, This is your room. The innkeeper warmly introduced the event happening later. If you want to come down and hang out later, you're welcome to. It's free. Tonight, the tavern's rising star will be performing a sexy dance. Alice smiled awkwardly, trying to decline politely. Sexy dance? No thanks, I just came here for the room. She thought to herself, that kind of shady business, The innkeeper pushed harder. It's really beautiful, you know. If you're interested, why not go downstairs and take a look? Might give you a taste of that exotic charm, Alice said, pulling out a poster and making a vague excuse to fish for information. Compared to this. Ma'am, do you know the person on this wanted poster? The innkeeper studied the poster for a long time, pondering before replying, A gigolo who eats for free in Scotland? If his face is covered, I honestly don't know. Alice could only offer a wry smile. Fair enough. The innkeeper walked away right after speaking, leaving behind a friendly wish for her to have a good rest. Alice quickly ducked into her room, letting out a weary sigh to shake off the exhaustion of the day. No sooner had she stepped inside than Merlin walked out from the room next door. Catching a faint snippet of Alice's voice, it wouldn't be that simple, he paused and glanced in her direction. The door slammed shut. Did I just hear that silly adventurer's voice? Merlin, skeptical, scratched his head and walked off, wondering, was I just imagining things? Work, work, work. Alice rushed to the bed and flopped down, lying there comfortably. She giggled like a child, hugging her pillow and playing around, after sleeping outdoors for days. Finally, I can get a good night's sleep. Alice drifted into a daydream, muttering to herself, Great swordsman Elgin, when will we ever meet again? Back then, she had been hounded by pirates for a debt. A year ago, to pay off the debt for her Midran armor, Alice had braved many dangers. During one of those adventures, she met Elgin. She had been captured as a prisoner by pirates. She was in such a pathetic state, forced to kneel on the ground while cursing under her breath. "Damn you bastards!" They stared intently at Alice and lunged toward her. They gave an evil laugh and began to threaten her. "We only wanted to kidnap the Duke's daughter. Didn't expect to catch some foolhardy adventurer instead. These girls with their soft skin, not bad at all. Tonight the boys and I will have some real fun." Behind Alice, many other captured girls huddled together, sobbing. She was provoked by their insults and shouted, "You pieces of scum! You thugs taking advantage of others!" They laughed madly in response. "We are scum, so what? Start with her." Suddenly, a mysterious voice rang out from a distance, warning, "Hold it right there." The thugs were interrupted and jerked their heads around to look. One of them challenged, "Who's there?" Merlin chuckled, tipping his hat. "Coming to cause trouble, I see," he replied, his voice relaxed. Alice tried to look toward the sound, thinking, "Someone's here." But she was stuck in a cage, so her view was limited. "Damn it, I can't see anything from in here." The thugs were infuriated by his tone, snarling, "You dare cause trouble for our red-beard pirate crew? Are you tired of living? You've got some nerve, kid." Merlin gave a look of contempt, lowering his gaze as he asked, "Are you all really that tough?" They grabbed their weapons, bracing for a fight. One shouted confidently, "Our red-beard brothers are all Saint Tier warriors, ruling the seas, unrivaled." They received orders from the commander and began moving the ship, readying for the battle. "Our invincible warship can even handle the Imperial Navy with ease," the captain boasted, gloating over their track record. He pointed at Merlin. "So, as for the captives in our brothers' hands, don't even dream of taking them with just an unknown nobody like you." Observing the situation, Merlin smirked with delight, thinking, to run into two Saint Tier warriors while out collecting debts. He took a stance, reaching for his sword. This might just soothe my curse a little bit. Alone, he accepted the challenge against the lawless pirates. "My luck really isn't bad at all," he remarked. They sneered back, "Enough chatter, kid, go to hell." They channeled their energy and clashed in an instant with overwhelming force. Merlin locked eyes on them, identifying their weaknesses, and drew his blade with a steady gaze. In a swift, clean strike, he landed gracefully on the ground. The captain was hit by such an overwhelming force that he instantly lost consciousness. The remaining guard didn't even have time to react before his life was taken. Their warship was torn into splinters, drifting on the water. The scene unfolded so fast, while Merlin's steady silhouette stood silently watching. Alice was stunned, staring at that figure for a long time. Now, lying in bed, the memory made her incredibly excited. "Great swordsman Elgin! He was so cool!" She clutched her pillow. Alice hid her face, burying it into her pillow. "Merlin, though I didn't see his face, someone that powerful must be very generous." Thinking of that, she remembered what she had to do. "Right, I have to write a letter to my master." Alice picked up a brush and quickly wrote the intelligence report to send back. In the quiet room, she carefully penned every character. "Dear Master, I am doing very well right now. I have so much money I can't even spend it all. No debts to the Holy See and no worries about rent." She rubbed her chin, silently thanking the divine. "Oh gods, I pray to you every single day." The letter was finished in no time. Tucked within it was Alice's heartfelt plea, "Please, in this life, let me never cross paths with that scumbag Merlin again." She looked out at the dark sky and clasped her hands to pray once more. "Oh gods, I pray to you every single day." The prayer was repeated, even more emphatic this time. "Please, in this life, let me never cross paths with that scumbag Merlin." Down in the inn lobby, everyone was cheering and chanting. Alice recalled his image and silently judged him. He's a lecherous, filthy scumbag, his head filled with nothing but trash. You must punish him. Make him become a homeless wanderer, destitute until the very last moment of his life, only able to survive as a lowly gigolo. Furthermore, let him lose every bet he makes, with the worst luck imaginable, and never have a day where he can turn his life around. Merlin, who was singing and dancing on stage, suddenly let out a huge sneeze. He adjusted his mask, looking around suspiciously. "Why do I sneeze at this time every single day? Could it be that someone is cursing me behind my back? Who in the world hates me this much?" Down on the floor, the wealthy matrons were constantly calling for little Chrysanthemum, full of hope. This strange situation piqued Alice's curiosity again. She watched and thought, who on earth is this little chrysanthemum? Even up here on the floor, she could hear those women chanting. Someone set their glass down on the table, clearly wanting to sit next to her. Henry clenched his fists in irritation, cursing those loose women under his breath. Those women, they're going to get bled dry of all their money tonight. Alice gave an awkward, forced smile as she tried to reason with him. Little brother, isn't that being a bit too harsh? They've put so much effort into their makeup. Henry curled his lip, glancing at them with disdain. It's not harsh at all. Most of these women already have husbands, yet here they are. It's absolutely shameless! He pinched his own thigh in frustration, his voice darkening. Mom, it's all because she does this kind of work. That she gets talked about behind her back. How annoying. Watching his reaction, Alice finally realized who he was, the boss lady's son, right? Suddenly, the kid started showering her with praise. You're still the best big sister. He stared at her with sparkling eyes, unable to stop complimenting her. Big sister, you're so genuine, not fake at all. Unlike those awful women. Alice was so flattered she actually blushed. Really? You think so? Henry looked her over, as if noticing something. On Alice's person, he spotted her adventurer certification badge. Henry's eyes lit up as if he'd found gold, filled with pure admiration. Henry excitedly bombarded her with questions, needing to be sure. Big sister, you're so amazing. Are you a royal adventurer? Alice didn't think much of it and replied with a gentle smile. Yes, that's right. Glowing with pride at her rank, her face brightened at his praise. Amazing! Super amazing! You must be a high-ranking powerhouse, right? This is my first time meeting someone as impressive as you. She stayed humble, though her voice still held a hint of pride. It's nothing special, really. Henry pointed to her sword and made a request. Big sister, could you teach me swordsmanship? I want to learn. I really, really want to learn. This put her in a bit of a tight spot. She paused for a few seconds. Alice glanced away, silently calculating. The absolute zero sword technique hadn't been passed on yet, mostly because it was impossible to learn. What do I do? She looked at the glass of water on the table and quickly came up with a plan. That's it! Alice reached out and gently patted the boy's head. With a calm demeanor, she set a condition for Henry. I can certainly teach you swordplay, but first, you have to drink lots of milk. It'll make your body grow strong. Convinced, the boy asked excitedly, Really? Henry obediently followed suit, grabbing the glass of water on the table and downing it in one go while Alice watched. She smiled as he placed the glass back where it was. He continued to praise her. As expected of a high-ranking powerhouse, your way of thinking is so much better than that useless old man who only knows how to draw his sword and brag, tricking people. Curious and surprised, she asked, Henry, who is this useless old man who only knows how to draw his sword? Behind them, the wealthy women were constantly screaming, Little uncle! Little uncle! Merlin just opened his mouth casually, saying one sentence, and the crowd went wild. Sorry to keep you all waiting. The intermission is over. The next act begins now, he declared confidently on stage. Alice stared blankly at his performance and asked Henry, Is this the little uncle? Henry shrugged, looking bored. Yup, that's the useless old man who only knows how to draw his sword. I was shouting and dancing on one hand, while on the other, he was gossiping and insulting the old guy. Even though he's a bit useless, his ability to draw in these women is honestly terrifying. He's basically just a gigolo living off others. Alice listened closely and repeated the words. A gigolo living off others? Without hesitation, she drew her sword and took a stance. She stepped in front of Henry, aggressively declaring, Sister! Sister has to go catch a wanted criminal. Stay here, don't move. She marched forward courageously, calling out loudly to get Merlin's attention. Hey! Alice appeared in front of him with her sword drawn, voice fierce. Are you the gigolo Scotland? You owe so much money, aren't you going to surrender quietly? Merlin rubbed his chin, lost in thought for a while. You look a lot like that foolish female powerhouse from a year ago, but I remember her chest wasn't this big. She continued to threaten him. Don't resist. Come with me obediently, or I'll have to use force. Merlin tried to talk her down. Wait, don't move. Seizing a moment, he reached out and, in a flash, placed his hand on Alice's chest. She was so caught off guard she couldn't react. He pondered it in front of everyone and voiced his judgment. Feels like breast pads. Then it's no problem. She blushed deeply from the shame and stammered, You... Unable to take it anymore, she raised her sword and began stabbing wildly in front of her, screaming, "How rude!" Merlin had excellent reflexes and dodged every single swing. Alice cursed him repeatedly. "Die! Die! Die!" Merlin smirked, dodging the blade while trying to calm her down. "Wait, just calm down a second. What happens if you hurt someone?" In this situation, Alice was teased until she was on the verge of tears. "If I don't cut your hand off, I won't stop." Hearing that, Merlin gave in to her wishes and let out a quiet sigh. He leapt up lightly, shocking her. As graceful as a feather, he stepped onto her sword and stood right before Alice. Merlin gained control of her blade. He quickly immobilized it and placed a hand on Alice's head, petting her as if giving a compliment. Regaining control of the situation, Merlin said, "That's enough, Alice. It's been a year, and your temper has only gotten worse, huh? Shouldn't old acquaintances greet each other with a hug? You're not even acting like yourself, stabbing at me like that. My beautiful lady." He began to take off his mask and adjusted his ponytail. "Have you forgotten those wonderful nights when we sailed across the strait together? I still remember. Once we got to shore, you couldn't control your emotions and frantically stripped off your clothes to beg for my affection." Alice stood face to face with Merlin, completely speechless. He looked at her with an amused smile, confirming to Alice that he had been thinking about her at that moment. "Still so young and naive. It's me, Merlin. Hundreds of scenarios you imagined collapsed instantly along with your own mood." Alice was in absolute despair and could only let out a scream that echoed through the city as night fell, the crescent moon shimmered, and the lights cast a glow on the sign of the Purple Moon Tavern. Merlin held a black mask, his face wearing a sinister smirk. Alice broke into a cold sweat when she saw him. He put his hands on his hips and responded suavely, "It's me, Merlin, Alice. Have you forgotten those wonderful nights? Did we not sail across that strait together?" She glared at him, stammering, "You!" Alice gripped her sword tightly, saying, "Because this year of oppression and humiliation is all your fault," she screamed, ready to strike him. In a fit of rage, she yelled, "Go to hell, Merlin Lucifer!" Merlin suddenly grabbed her wrist to stop her from swinging the sword. He held her hand tightly against his shoulder and whispered in her ear, Hey, Alice, calm down a little. We were partners, after all. We crossed the strait together. Didn't I just take a little bit of your loot? It's not enough to warrant killing me, is it?" Alice looked at him, tears welling up. She glared at him, then suddenly slumped down, supporting herself with her hands. Alice looked up at the sky and burst into tears. She sobbed, "You bastard, how dare you say that? You took the most precious thing from me and then just heartlessly walked away. Do you even know how much you've hurt me?" Seeing this, he looked baffled and speechless. She continued to scream, "Everything I've worked so hard for is because you refuse to take responsibility. If you're even a man at all, then step up and take responsibility for me." Merlin glanced at the two girls behind him who were gossiping. He didn't expect Little Cuck to have been involved in this kind of thing, too. Isn't this just the definition of scum? He looked to the other side and saw Henry also looking at him with disdain. Even he believed Alice's words. "Big brother Merlin, big brother, what did you do to the big sister? How cruel!" Realizing things were getting out of hand, he stammered, trying to explain, No, everyone has misunderstood." Henry pointed at Alice, who was still crying, and shouted angrily, "Enough! A piece of trash like you getting the favor of the big sister? Shouldn't you feel lucky? To have taken everything and not even think about taking responsibility," she cried while saying indignantly, "Give me back what is important to me, you scum!" Henry gave him a look of pure contempt. He spat on the ground and said, "I look down on you more and more now." Merlin's face went dark, and he broke into a cold sweat seeing everyone whispering about him, thinking, "This idiot girl is making it sound so suspicious. Everyone has completely misunderstood. My reputation, which I've worked so hard to build, is completely ruined." With no other way to sell his liquor, his gaze grew determined as he thought, "To fix my image, this is the only way." Suddenly, he sat down and pulled Alice into his arms. The atmosphere turned quiet. She blushed, not understanding what was happening when she heard him say, "Miss Alice, please calm down for a moment. Let's put aside our grievances for now and have a drink together. My treat." Merlin spoke in a low voice and asked, "What happened? Let's talk about it while we drink. Shall we?" The clock on the wall was ticking. The pendulum swung back and forth. The two sat in the tavern. A figure watched from afar. Merlin glanced at her as she downed a glass of milk and said, "All right then. Alice, the customers have all left. Let's talk." Alice refreshedly set the glass down, wiped her mouth, let out a ha to catch her breath, and said, "Cold milk is amazing. Miss Maria, please give me another glass." He watched her and chuckled, mockingly saying, "No one is stealing it from you. Why are you drinking so frantically? You don't have a shred of ladylike grace. With that attitude, you'll never find a boyfriend." Hearing this, she got angry, glared at him, puffed out her cheeks, and snapped, "I don't need you to worry about that. Besides, I already have a boyfriend. Have you ever heard of the great swordmaster Elgin? He can finish someone off in just a few minutes." Merlin held his wine glass, ignoring her and looking elsewhere, thinking, this great swordmaster Elgin must be blind to have taken a liking to this idiot girl. The tavern owner saw the two chatting intimately and smiled, thinking to herself, Mr. Merlin is truly popular with women. He even has a connection with the high-level adventurer, the young lady. The tavern owner watched the two chatting non-stop and thought, these two certainly seem like a couple. The tavern owner placed the washed glass upside down on the table. The owner called his name, Merlin. The tavern owner turned away with a warm smile and said, "I'm going upstairs to put Henry to bed. You and Miss Alice take your time talking." He replied, "All right, have a good night, Masati." The tavern owner winked at him and reminded, you too. Try your best to make up with Miss Alice." Merlin watched the tavern owner humming as she went upstairs and felt helpless. All right, fine." Alice, holding the glass of cold milk, looked at him and said, "If you return my item, our grudge will be wiped clean." He looked at her and asked, "What item?" Hearing his question, she felt shy and awkward, coughing slightly. Merlin paused when he heard her and frowned. "The Midran armor? The thing you stripped off me?" He dodged the question, not intending to return it, and hesitantly said, "It's just a chest pad, that's all." "It's an external object. What do you need it for?" Hearing him say that, she became furious. "Stop the nonsense! Give it back to me now!" His forehead broke into a sweat, not knowing how to answer. Merlin waved his hand and said, "I'm sorry, I already sold it." Alice felt like she had been struck by lightning when she heard he sold it. She went blank as he continued. "Besides, I invested all the money from the sale into the Royal Horse Racing track. And now it's all gone. I lost it all." Merlin forced a laugh and said, "It's just a piece of armor. Why be so stingy?" She felt suppressed, her voice trembling as she screamed, "That armor was worth tens of millions of gold coins. How could you spend it all that fast?" She was bitter and angry, grinding her teeth, her hands clenched as if she wanted to beat him up. Alice suddenly grabbed his collar and said, "You say that so lightly, huh?" Veins popped out on her forehead. She frowned, overcome with rage. "In short, if you don't return the armor, you and I are not finished." Merlin grabbed her wrists to stop her from pulling his shirt any further, let her go, and with his other hand, adjusted his collar. Smirking, he said, "According to the laws of our demon tribe, whatever I've plundered is rightfully mine. Are you really here to demand it back from me now?" Alice looked at him, stunned, and he continued, "I have only one thing to say. If you want money, there isn't any. If you want my life, that I can give." Merlin stood across from her and declared, "I am no longer the Demon King, so we are not enemies anymore." He narrowed his eyes, his voice laced with a threat. "But if you still want my head—" Merlin gripped the hilt of the blade at his waist, his aura overwhelming as he warned, "Then our relationship remains that of enemies." Alice was visibly shaken by his threat. Her eyes widened and she bit her lip. He gave a slight, triumphant smile before gently sheathing his sword. She lowered her head, peeking up at him, unable to fathom his attitude. He took a sip of his drink, crossed his legs, and said with a smug look, "Don't worry. I've received quite a bit of hospitality from Lady Marsa. You wouldn't want to cause a scene in her establishment, would you?" He leaned against the counter, relaxed and arrogant, adding, "So just stay calm. We're here to drink, not to wreck the place with swords. Negotiating to solve disputes is much smarter than resorting to violence." Alice looked at him with serious, defensive eyes and let out a huff. Worried, she asked, "Aren't you extremely powerful? Can't you just go get the Midran armor back?" He replied, "We demons are a race that values fairness and truth, not like the hypocritical humans. To us, a transaction is something sacred. You were willing, the deal was made." Alice raised an eyebrow, confused, and pointed at herself, asking, "Didn't you just say you aren't the Demon King anymore? Why do you still hold on to those values?" Merlin's face darkened as he looked at her, helplessly saying, "Even if I am no longer the Demon King, I am still the former prideful monarch. To steal back something I have already sold, that is something I cannot bring myself to do. Besides, aren't you a hero? A hero inciting others to commit robbery? Hearing this, she slumped, her voice heavy with sadness. I am no longer a hero either. Alice looked at him as if she wanted to eat him alive. That Midran armor, I borrowed it, after it was stolen from me. I naturally have to bear the debt of tens of millions of gold coins. He dodged her piercing gaze, feigning ignorance and laughing. Is that so? Tens of millions of gold coins? If you work hard, one day you'll be able to pay it all off. She clutched her head in frustration, head bowed. That's easy to say, but I have to take on rank 5 commissions just to get a few tens of thousands of gold coins. It's so dangerous. If I really want to pay it all off, who knows how long that will take. Merlin paused upon hearing that a single mission could pay tens of thousands of gold coins. He smirked and asked, Alice, is what you said true? Alice stared him down. Of course it's true, but S-rank commissions are usually extremely dangerous. It's no surprise to run into Saint Level enemies. One careless move and you lose your life. High risk, high reward, you could say. She shouted in anger. But even so, I would have to do thousands of rank 5 commissions to clear this debt, and this is all your fault. Merlin rested both hands on the table, a cunning smile on his face. I think I've figured out what my next job should be. The perks of being an adventurer? He imagined himself easily cutting down dinosaurs with his sword, bumping into Saint-level enemies while keeping his life. He lounged on the sofa, sipping wine served by a maid, earning loads of gold, and living a life of leisure. Merlin thought this profession seemed perfectly suited for him. After making his decision, he called out, Miss Alice. She looked up instinctively. He winked, trying to charm her with his looks. Are there any conditions to becoming an adventurer? She looked at him suspiciously. As long as you have battle aura or magical power, you can become an adventurer. Hearing the requirements, Merlin thought, those conditions are way too harsh. I just happen to be the type who has neither battle aura nor magic. He asked, besides that, is there any other way? Hearing this, Alice said, a recommendation from a currently active adventurer also works. Why are you asking this? He put on a sly face, his voice oily. Well, Miss Alice, look here. Merlin looked at her with expectant eyes. We're what you'd call spiritual friends, aren't we? Do you think you could put in a good word for me? Actually, I really want to become an adventurer. She felt a chill when she saw him drop the act and recoiled as if avoiding a plague. Alice raised her voice, determined to refuse. You? You want to be an adventurer? Why on earth would I recommend you? He replied cheerfully, we're in the same boat now, aren't we? We can't be considered strangers anymore, right? She pointed an angry finger at him and snapped, in your dreams, a scum like you, even if I die, I won't recommend you. The whole tavern was filled with the noise of their argument. Just recommend me, it wouldn't cost you anything. You narrow-minded brat. A guy like you should never think about becoming an adventurer, you gigolo who only knows how to rely on women. After bickering for a while, they turned their backs on each other. That night, they parted on bad terms. A few days later, back at the Sunset Tavern, Merlin was wiping glasses at the bar. He sighed as he worked, and the tavern owner walked down the stairs looking at him as she asked, Merlin, have you seen Henry? He replied, sorry, I haven't seen him. The landlady worriedly wondered, that kid disappeared first thing in the morning, don't know where he went. I'll go out and look for him. But, the landlady leaned in and asked, Merlin, what's wrong with you? You seem so lifeless. Hearing this, Merlin sighed. Lady Mesa, you're wise and experienced. What do you think of the adventurer profession? The landlady replied, if you're talking about adventurers, perhaps it's a profession where hope and death coexist. Completing high-level commissions brings great rewards, but it's also very easy to lose your life during a mission. But that's not entirely accurate either. After all, some people do it out of a pursuit of freedom. She blinked, suddenly realizing something. She looked over at him, the landlady asking excitedly, So Merlin, have you found the next job you want to do? Do you want to go be an adventurer with Miss Alice? Merlin sighed wearily. I want to, but I have no magic or battle aura, and Alice refuses to recommend me. Don't say it like that. The tavern owner. Honestly, I don't think my words are convincing enough. I truly trust in you and Lady Alice, so please do your best. Hearing this, he just smiled and thanked Masati. The tavern owner replied with a slightly flustered expression, But Merlin watched, not saying a word. Suddenly, the tavern owner grabbed his hand, her eyes filled with worry as she urged, "Merlin, if you're going to work as an adventurer, please never take on dangerous quests." The tavern owner kept on talking. "Even though you always carry a sword, you have no magic power or combat aura, you're still too weak. Being an adventurer is a quick way to lose your life." Seeing how overly concerned she was for him, he didn't know what to say. "Masati, actually, I'm still very capable." Outside, thunder rumbled across the sky, hidden behind thick, dark clouds. Lightning struck near the tavern roof as raindrops began to fall onto the leaves. Making a pitter-patter sound, the tavern owner grabbed her umbrella. She turned to him, looking anxious. "The weather is terrible. I have to go find Henry. Merlin, please watch the shop for me." "Is that okay?" "Of course it's okay, Masati." Merlin looked up at the relentless rain, thinking to himself, "An adventurer, huh? I didn't know what the 3 silver-rank adventurers were drinking at the tavern at that time. What now?" Outside in the rain, a foot encased in iron armor appeared near the castle. The person breathed heavily, face covered in blood, and called out, Is anyone there?" A soldier inside was drunk. The drunk soldier heard a voice and shouted down, annoyed at being disturbed, "It's late! We're closed! Get lost, you brat!" The young adventurer, clutching his injured arm, pleaded, "I'm an adventurer. I left the village a while ago. My friends, they're all dead." Wait, correcting sequence. "I'm covered in wounds. Please save me." The green-haired soldier looked down and reported, "He's severely injured." The other one immediately ordered, "Open the city gates, now." The gates swung wide open. A soldier ran out, urging him, "What are you just standing there for? Get inside." The red-haired adventurer bowed, his body trembling, and sobbed. Tears fell as he cried out, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was just too late to save my fiancée. I'm sorry." The soldier didn't know what was wrong with the adventurer, but behind him, a ghastly green shadow appeared. "Hey, what are you talking about?" Suddenly, a giant goblin towered in front of the soldier. Another goblin stood on the giant's shoulder, laughing, "It was so easy." The 2 soldiers looked up in shock and screamed, "Goblins! A horde of goblins!" The creatures stood there, mouths stretched wide in horrifying grins. The goblin leader commanded, "Goblin warriors, the village ahead is our prey." The goblin troops clutched their weapons, grinning and baring their teeth as they followed the leader's order. "Go, warriors! Bring all the valuable treasures to our emperor!" The goblins stormed the gate. A soldier, failing to run fast enough, was attacked by a goblin. The other one, face streaked with tears and snot, screamed, "Invasion! The goblins are invading!" The adventurer, standing behind the giant goblin, called out, "Hey, I helped you! According to our deal, give her back to me!" The goblin leader glanced at the adventurer and gave a sinister, treacherous laugh. "Indeed, you helped us open the city gates. You saved us a lot of trouble, but don't expect us to return that woman to you. She is already His Majesty's slave. From her body to her soul, everything is forgotten." He conjured a fireball in his hand. The adventurer's eyes widened as he screamed, "No!" And just like that, he was engulfed in flames. The adventurer shrieked in agony. The goblin leader turned his head, grinning as the man burned. The goblins stormed into the city, laughing gleefully. Humans run in terror. In the heart of the village, amidst the torrential rain, bells began to ring. People whispered, looking up at the sky with troubled expressions. A young man opened his window, looking outside in surprise. "What's going on? Is it the garrison troops?" Suddenly, he heard a strange noise. He looked up and saw a green goblin holding a sword, ready to strike. With a crack, blood splattered into the silent night. The blade pierced through him. The goblin looked smug. Seeing the goblins mixing into the village, people screamed in terror, "Goblins! Goblins!" More and more goblins arrived, their faces ferocious. They chased people with swords, causing chaos. Desperate screams for help echoed everywhere. Soon, the village was swallowed by a sea of fire. Over there, Alice was eating an apple when she was startled by a sound. She looked toward the intense fire in the sky. Alice's eyes widened, her face full of anxiety as she blurted out, "What happened?" She rushed through the rain, past the scene of devastation. Amidst the screams of the villagers, a man turned his head back and yelled, "Run! Run away! They're here!" Alice looked at the villagers, panicked and asking urgently, "What's wrong?" An old man grabbed her shoulder, panting as he warned, "Girl, hide quickly! She hurriedly replied to reassure him. A fire? I know ice magic, I can— Before Alice could finish, an arrow flew from nowhere, aimed straight at her. It pierced the poor old man's body. A cry of pain rang out, leaving Alice frozen in place. A streak of blood stained her face. A life was lost just like that. The old man lay motionless in a long, widening pool of blood on the ground. Cold-blooded, the goblins approached her with menacing expressions. A goblin raised its bow to attack. A flow of energy surged. It was Alice's magic, freezing the goblin's hand. The ice spread rapidly. The creature, not realizing what was happening, began to howl. They panicked as they watched their comrade frozen and shattered into pieces. She gestured toward the goblins surrounding her. A cold wind swept past them. Alice's eyes were now filled with fury at the goblins' brutality. Wave after wave of them charged, attacking her relentlessly. Alice challenged them. Come on! Don't you dare blink or else— As she held her sword, sharp ice shards appeared around her. You won't even know how you died. The goblins ignored her words, eyeing her as if to tear her apart. Alice raised her sword high, and magical ice formations multiplied around her. With her innate abilities, she quickly summoned massive ice blades. Alice used all her strength. In an instant, the ice pierced through the goblins while she remained focused. Suddenly, another goblin appeared on high, aiming his bow at her. He released the string coldly, the arrow flying from the crossbow with blinding speed, but Alice reacted just in time to create an ice wall to intercept that dirty scheme. The goblin panicked, his face turning pale with fright as Alice spread her icy wings, arrogantly channeling a wave of cold air toward him. She gently flapped her wings and gradually rose higher. Alice glared down, giving a direct warning. For the sake of justice, I will send you monsters straight to hell. The goblins watching this scene stared in shock. One of them yelled, ordering them to kill her. Alice quickly dodged the arrows from the goblins as she flew, circling in the air, leaving a trail of ice wherever she passed. In an instant, the goblins were frozen into statues, standing motionless. At that same moment, at the moonlit tavern, under a relentless drizzle, Merlin was chatting with the girls. One of them spoke up. You're so annoying, little chrysanthemum brother. You really know how to brag. He burst into laughter and replied, Why would I ever lie to ladies in love? Tell us more, little chrysanthemum brother, she urged. Suddenly, he heard a noise from outside. Quick, run! They're here! Merlin found an excuse to get up and leave, offering an explanation. My apologies, ladies, it sounds a bit noisy outside. I'll go check on the situation. They intentionally used their words to try and keep him there. It's probably just some husband and wife arguing. Little chrysanthemum brother, don't pay it any mind. Merlin pretended to agree. All right, then. In this day and age, couples arguing is truly common. So, let's continue, one girl said happily, sounding eager. We can finally hear more of your love history. Through the glass, the silhouette of a goblin attacker appeared. It kicked the door in with force, sending glass shards flying everywhere. Merlin and the girls startled and turned their heads toward the source. The noise shattered the quiet atmosphere of the village as the goblins appeared, arrogant and bold. One by one, the goblins emerged, brandishing weapons. The girls, their faces filled with terror, screamed, Goblins! It's the goblins! The creatures had sinister, twisted expressions. They grinned, revealing their teeth and making ghastly sounds. Merlin calmly looked at the goblins and asked in a serious tone, What's the deal with these green-skinned monsters? The night, already heavy with drizzle, became even more chaotic. The village was turned into a gloomy ruin in a single night. The tavern owner, Henry's mother, ran frantically through the rain, anxiously searching for her young son. Henry, where are you? Nearby, toys clashed in a fierce pretend battle. Little Henry excitedly recounted his meeting with the adventurer. That big sister with the hat said she'd teach me amazing sword skills. Two playmates gasped in admiration. Henry proudly declared his future with conviction. Before long, I'll become an adventurer and protect my mom. I'm so jealous of you, Henry. The boy beside him looked out the window and added, Wait, what's all that noise outside? The kids huddled together, scrambling to peek through the window. What's going on? The desolate scene made Henry stare in wide-eyed shock. With a worried face, he shouted out, What happened? His mother's voice still echoed in the distance. Henry, where are you? She held a dim lamp in the rain, calling out loudly, It's dangerous out here! Come home, quickly! Henry, where are you? He leaned out the window, confirming the call. "Mom!" It felt as if she were in grave danger. Henry panicked as he watched the goblins swarming around his mother, who was now terrified. Like predators catching prey, they looked at her with greedy eyes. The dim lamp in her hand was cast aside, shattering on the ground. The goblins restrained her, forcing her to the ground and binding her with ropes. Up above, Henry cried out for her. He lunged toward the stairs, shouting angrily, "I have to go save my mom!" The other kids held him back, pleading, "Henry, if you go, you'll die. They're right." "Henry, do you want to die? Goblins are man-eaters. You'll be killed." He could only blink back tears, forced to watch as his mother was dragged away by the goblins. "Let her go! I wanted to save my mom!" In the current situation, apart from crying and calling out, there was nothing else he could do. Just like that, the tavern owner was captured, tied up, and taken to the royal palace as a sacrificial offering. The road fell into silence, marking the bitter separation in the ravaged village. Over at the moonlit tavern, a goblin was sent flying into the wall, shattering a mirror. Glass flew everywhere. Merlin put on his gloves, glaring at them in warning. He picked up a nearby chair as the goblin begged for mercy. The group of girls hid in the corner, terrified. "These devils! Green-skinned freaks, don't disturb me while I'm hosting guests." With a furious gaze, he raised the chair, ready to bring it down. "You really don't know your place." The goblin, cornered against the wall with a bruised face, looked at him in fear as he brought it down. "With one final powerful blow!" The creature shrieked in agony as blood splattered everywhere. Merlin dropped the chair beside the goblin's corpse. Blood pooled continuously on the floor. He let out a breath and brushed his hair back from his eyes. Wave after wave, more goblins swarmed to surround him. Merlin narrowed his eyes, wondering to himself. The village was now occupied by these green-skinned creatures. They stood before him, wielding weapons. "What is this situation?" they sneered, trying to overwhelm him with numbers. One of them screamed an order. "Kill him!" With him at the center, they lunged like a storm. Merlin glanced at them, his voice dropping with disdain. "Do you weaklings think you're worthy of brandishing weapons in front of me?" He drew his omnipotent sword from its sheath, preparing for the lopsided battle. With a single light strike, Merlin swung. The surrounding area trembled under the pressure. The goblins were startled, backing away a few steps. Guarding his blade back into its sheath, he spoke, "Let me give you a chance to do something useful for the world." Merlin fell silent, gripping the sword tightly. They were confused, truly not knowing what he was doing. Suddenly their bodies swelled up like balloons filled with air, and then, at Merlin's command, they exploded like fireworks. "Explode into flames!" Elsewhere, houses were being set ablaze, and crowds were shouting as they fled. Gargamel stood on the ramparts, watching and laughing triumphantly. "Humanity is so weak. I'm afraid they'll all be slaughtered before long." Someone came running from behind to report. "Prime Minister, the entire Western Army has been wiped out," he asked in surprise. "Wait, the entire army was wiped out? Was it the work of a high-level powerhouse?" The subordinate recalled Merlin's image and described him. No, it's impossible. I couldn't sense any magic or battle aura from him. He looked like just an ordinary man. Golden hair, red eyes, very handsome." Gargamel snapped at this. "What does whether he's handsome or not have to do with us? We're goblins. We only care about the females." The subordinate quickly affirmed, "The Prime Minister is right." He paused for a beat, rubbing his chin in thought, but, with a contemplative look, he voiced his thoughts. "An ordinary person wiped out our entire Western army? How strange. How could that be?" The soldier provided more urgent information. "I saw it with my own eyes. That guy didn't even draw his sword. In the blink of an eye, he wiped out our entire Western army, and there's more." Alice blocked their path at the central road. Our forces there were also completely annihilated. Their bodies were pierced by ice. The scene was absolutely horrific. "That white-haired swordsman is heading this way, too." The more Gargamel heard, the angrier he became. "Damn it! One unexpected situation after another. It seems our losses are quite severe. We must leave immediately." He turned and quickly ordered the whole army to retreat. Gargamel had already calculated in his mind, as long as he could capture enough human females this time, the number of casualties from this mission could be replenished very quickly. The goblins quickly retreated. Henry's mother, being dragged along by them, stumbled through the rain. She looked back, praying in her heart for her son's safety. "Henry, you must stay safe." Alice moved through the rain toward the main road to hunt down the goblins when she suddenly heard strange noises. Seeing the goblins signal to retreat, Alice's face tightened with worry. This heavy rain would wash away all their tracks. The sea of fire was growing and spreading, but it couldn't dampen her will to fight. I can't let them kidnap these women. A goblin sprinted quickly, the sound of movement echoing against the wet ground. One goblin holding a large wooden club lunged and screamed as it attacked Alice. She quickly stayed alert and blocked his blow. Alice quickly took a defensive stance but was knocked far away by him. She dodged the debris as he retaliated. The rain grew heavier, highlighting the size difference between them. I was nothing more than a green giant. Alice, angry and with a cold gaze, said, "Don't block my way or I won't be polite." The goblin let out a ferocious roar. That heavy body lunged forward, raised its club high, and swung down twice. Alice quickly jumped backward. Alice cast her spell, launching a series of ice shards. Sharp ice daggers pierced his flesh, causing him great pain. A blue light flashed. He still hadn't realized what was happening, and just after that, she lunged forward with an ice spear. Alice pierced straight through the goblin's body, cutting him in two. His body slowly turned into an ice statue, then many cracks appeared. Finally, Alice ended the battle with a slash. As she cut through the goblin, his body shattered. Because she was so focused on fighting the giant goblin, she forgot the others. She couldn't stop them from escaping. She was startled. "Oh no!" Looking at the city scene, with only ruins and fires left, Alice gritted her teeth in anger. "I let them get away." She looked back at the place. The rain was still pouring just as heavily. Children cried in the rain, looking for their mothers. Some called for help, but there was no one in sight. The scene was truly tragic. She thought back to the current situation and worried for this place. The goblins took those people as prisoners. They probably won't hurt them immediately. Maybe I should stay here for a while longer. The village bell tower began to chime. The villagers, with tired faces, looked slightly confused and weary. This was the village chief's bell to gather everyone. Things have come to this point. What else is there to do? Inside the town hall, where people were being treated and gathered, it seemed everyone had arrived. On the stage, the village chief was restless and anxious. "Gather everyone, just gather them. Now that many people have been kidnapped behind the mountain, what does everyone intend to do?" The faces of the people below the stage were full of tension and unease. "This matter, even as the village chief, I cannot decide this alone." A man clenched his fists, beads of sweat on his face, his voice trembling slightly. "Should we just leave? What else can we even do?" Then, two other men spoke up. "Everyone knows how terrifying those goblins are. Those people have already been taken." "We can't save them!" A sharp voice rose from somewhere. "Are you kidding me?" Harry, the pub owner's son, was resentful. "My mother was taken by those goblins," he shouted at the selfish crowd, making them speechless and guilty. "You all have relatives who were taken too. Don't you want to save them?" He spoke bluntly to everyone present. "We must save them. Shedding blood for our loved ones is only natural. If you don't intend to save them, you will definitely go to hell." Suddenly, an authoritative voice cut in. "Talk nonsense, you!" The priest appeared. The villagers and the village chief looked slightly surprised. "It's the priest! It's the priest!" The old man affirmed his twisted ideals. "None of the people here will go to hell, because the great goddess of light is very merciful." The village chief was nervous, his voice trembling a bit. "Priest, you must have a way to solve the current problem." "Right?" Below, the villagers all begged for help. "Yes, priest, please find a way." The deceptive priest manipulated their minds. He pretended to reassure the villagers. "Everyone, rest easy. If you entrust yourselves to me, the goddess of light will be merciful regarding all your sins." The townspeople bowed in gratitude to the priest. "Praise be to the goddess of light." The old man held up a scripture. "We pathetic mortals have no way to rescue those who were taken. It's foolish to throw your lives away now, but we can stay here and pray for them." He began preaching his lies, claiming that prayer could make the goddess of light help them save the captives. Those with loved ones in danger listened intently. "Now go and buy a scripture. Your loved ones will return on their own." People were slowly starting to believe the story the priest had made up. Just by buying a scripture, the captives would return? "It's true," a man in the crowd shouted. "I was once captured by goblins myself. Thanks to my prayers, the goddess of light kept me safe and sound." Hearing this, everyone was stunned and began clamoring for confirmation. Are you serious? You really escaped from those goblins? Of course. When I pulled out the scripture, those goblins were so terrified they didn't dare lay a finger on me. The crowd became even more blinded and started believing every word. Goddess of light, please save our families. When the priest sells the scriptures, I'm definitely buying a dozen, but where can we buy them right now? The two men were clearly accomplices. Once their manipulation succeeded, they exchanged a cunning smirk. The old man urged the crowd to buy, telling them not to worry. I have a dozen scriptures right here with me. They're only 100 gold coins each. Stocks are limited, so hurry up and buy. Completely led astray, the crowd began cheering for the priest, praising the great priest, and believing in the goddess's miracles. The constant applause for the priest infuriated Henry. Are you all out of your minds? How can you still let this guy swindle you? Henry pointed directly at the old fraud, questioning him and trying to wake everyone up. The longer you drag this out, the more danger the captives are in. If anything happens to them, this scammer will definitely rot in hell. The old man continued to bluster. Don't listen to this brat's nonsense. This is the only way to save them. Unable to convince anyone, Henry clenched his fists and sobbed. You're just lying to yourselves. This won't save anyone. Suddenly, a hand rested on Henry's shoulder. A voice rang out. Henry, you did well. Alice glared at the scammers. You old hypocrite, pack up all your little tricks and get lost. Get out of here right now. The old priest stomped his feet in fury, shouting, Who do you think you are? Where did you come from? You dare insult our holy deity? You deserve to be burned at the stake. Alice stepped proudly onto the platform, her voice challenging. Standing tall, she declared, I am an adventurer from Raceham, and the 233rd hero of the Holy See, Alice Claudia. The crowd gasped in shock. What? Alice stood firm, hands on her hips, facing him with an intimidating, fierce aura. The crowd shouted, The 230th hero? He pointed a finger at her, spitting out insults. The 230th hero? You're just the one who brought shame to the Holy See. You didn't just suffer defeat. You were even rumored to have colluded with the Demon King, Alice replied calmly. I didn't come here to talk about my past, but to stop you from deceiving people. Hearing her rebuttal, he stumbled, scrambling for words to insult her. You are the disgrace of the church. What gives you the right to speak? Prayer is the most effective method right now, Alice. Ignoring him, she said. If His Holiness the Pope knew you were here exploiting people, refusing to help those in need, he would be incredibly disappointed. With a cold snort, her sword flashed. The tip of her blade stopped inches from his throat. The sharp steel could take his life at any moment. He broke into a cold sweat, terrified. Alice stood silent, her voice icy. If you think prayer is so effective, why don't you pray right now that I won't kill you? Are you willing to bet your life to prove that prayer works? I immediately drop to his knees, trembling with fear, bowing repeatedly. Please have mercy, forgive me. She pulled her sword back and barked, Get lost, you fraud! Alice looked down at the confused crowd. She said bluntly, I know you're all terrified of death. Even when your loved ones are taken, you don't dare move, so you put your faith in prayer. It's just a useless form of comfort, a cowardly choice. The gods won't help the foolish, she said with steely confidence. There are many things that aren't impossible if you just try, but right now, the captives are waiting for you to save them. This is something you are capable of doing. Henry, listening from below, was thrilled and cheered. Big sister is so cool! Alice held up 2 fingers. You only have 2 choices now. Choose to stay silent, and die in shame or take up your swords and fight back. Alice turned to the village elder. Could you please tell us where their hideout is? The elder replied anxiously, Of course, hero, but the Goblin Emperor has likely reached the Saint Stage. Her gaze was steady, her voice confident. It doesn't matter. Just tell me the location. Rain continued to fall at the Purple Moon Tavern. A hand rested on the shoulder of a trembling girl. Merlin knelt on one knee, comforting the 3 terrified girls. Don't worry, my beautiful ladies. As long as you're with me, you'll be safe. The green-haired girl fearfully clutched his arm and said, Please protect me, little chrysanthemum. Merlin replied cheerfully, Of course. As Merlin comforted the girl, he looked back, wondering, Shemasa went to find Henry. Why hasn't she returned yet? Surely it can't be. Small footsteps came rushing by. Henry stared at him, breathing heavily. He ran toward the stairs. Merlin chased after him, asking, Henry, where were you running to? Where is Shemasa? Henry threw the door open, quickly grabbing the sword hanging on the wall. Clutching the sword, he looked down the stairs and said, "I don't need your concern, Uncle Merlin. I'm going to save my mom." Seeing this, Merlin thought to himself, "As I feared, Shamasa was also captured by those goblins, wasn't she?" Henry ran down the stairs. "So, Uncle Merlin, don't get in my way. I'm very busy right now." Merlin wouldn't let him go. He grabbed the back of Henry's collar and said, "Busy with what, kid? You're just going to cause more trouble." Henry struggled, shouting, "Let me go, you useless uncle! I'm going to save my mom!" Merlin looked at him, his voice serious. "Henry, you can't help her. Tell me exactly what happened." Henry burst into tears, snot and tears running down his face. "It's all my fault! Mom got taken by those goblins! I have to use my dad's sword to save Mom!" Merlin heard him crying and replied, "Calm down, kid. You're so small, what could you possibly do?" Henry suddenly shook him off and said, "What do you know, old man? I made a promise to my dad." "You don't understand anything. You just keep crying and blaming him. He's not home." "I'm the man of the house. I have to protect Mom." Merlin froze and fell silent upon hearing this. His eyes grew sad as he thought of the past, seeing himself sleeping in his mother's arms. Little Merlin had turned to call out to his mother, confidently saying, "When I grow up, I will definitely protect you." His mother had looked at him, dazed and surprised. Then she smiled happily. Remembering that memory, Merlin involuntarily covered his mouth and chuckled. His gaze turned firm and proud as he watched Henry's back, running down the road with his father's sword. He chuckled. "That little fool, he's just going to bring trouble upon himself." The three girls saw him acting strangely and asked, "Xiaoju?" He turned to look at them and suggested, "Please, ladies, stay here until sunrise before leaving." The blue-haired girl asked anxiously, "Xiaoju, are you leaving? It's very dangerous out there right now." Merlin smiled faintly and reached out to grab his cloak from the rack. He muttered, "Every once in a while I find myself thinking." He put on his cloak, picked up his sword, and replied softly, "Being a hero, actually, it's not half bad." The castle stood imposingly in the middle of the dark night as the wind howled fiercely. Alice rushed out from inside, listening intently, scanning her surroundings, and suddenly she spotted something. She let out a loud gasp. A trembling hand reached out as if pleading for help. Alice noticed the injured person's signal and knelt beside him to check. "Hey, are you all right?" He was dying. "I'm sorry," she tried to soothe him. "Don't try to speak. The villagers will be here very soon." "You will definitely be saved." He was shivering uncontrollably, his body dry and lifeless, as if he had no strength left to hold on. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at Alice as if something had surprised him. With his final breath, he called out to her, "Adventurer, Alice." She sincerely gripped his hand. Alice didn't want to let his hope slip away. She knelt on the ground, desperately pleading, "Lady Alice, please, I beg you, save my fiancé." He bowed his head, his whole body shaking as he continued to apologize. "I really have no other choice. I'm sorry." With her righteous nature, Alice used her words to lift his spirits. "Look up. An adventurer must always maintain their dignity." She quickly grabbed his adventurer badge and said firmly, "I will take your adventurer's badge for now." Alice looked at him and asked for information. "What is your fiancé's name?" He didn't hesitate. "Afra Sezin." The badge was just a token of exchange. She held it in her hand and promised, "I guarantee you, your adventurer's card will be returned to you by my own hands." He hadn't yet grasped the meaning of it all, but after looking at her for a long time, he stammered, "Lady Alice?" She left his words behind and walked away decisively. "Lady Alice, the Goblin King is a saint-rank powerhouse. You must be careful." The mood turned heavier. She bit her lip. "Saint rank. I'm not a match for them, but so what?" Alice recalled the image of Merlin, her eyes filled with even more relentless hatred. "Ordinary people should know their place and understand themselves. I will absolutely never forget those words. No one is willing to remain ordinary. Then, one must constantly challenge oneself." She gripped her sword tightly, showing her determination. Even in desperate situations, like Merlin walking his own path of righteousness, one must light the flame of hope inside the Goblin Palace. The wind whistled through the castle gates. The goblins guarding the captured women brought them to the main hall. Henry's mother was also dragged there as a sacrifice for the saint-rank king. Inside, footsteps with iron boots approached. The majestic king of the Goblin Kingdom stroked his long beard and laughed aloud at the flattery of the Prime Minister Gargamel. "You did well this time. What reward do you desire, your majesty?" "Your servant does not need a reward. To serve you is my greatest honor." Pleased by the words, the king praised him. "As expected of the Prime Minister, I trust the most." He looked at the loot his subordinates brought and smiled wickedly. "These goods aren't bad at all, are they? Take them to the back cells. Wait until I'm done bathing tonight, then I'll enjoy each one of them." The soldiers replied in unison, "Yes, Gargamel," interrupting to ask for permission to leave, and having the king's trust, he said, "If there is nothing else, Gargamel, you may withdraw. I must go take a bath." "Yes." Outside the palace behind Gargamel, he gave a stern order to his men. "You two and a few others go set an ambush." I explained his plan to his dim-witted subordinates. "Humans are emotional creatures. We've kidnapped so many of them. If our predictions are correct, a lot of villagers will come tonight to rescue them. So, we must set an ambush and wait for them to walk right into our trap." His subordinates marveled, making him laugh with pleasure. "So brilliant. As expected of Prime Minister Gargamel, your foresight is godlike." Of course. A subordinate assigned to guard duty looked through binoculars, squinting for a long time. He gasped as if he had made a new discovery and immediately reported the situation to the Prime Minister. "Prime Minister Gargamel, something white is charging toward us." He asked back, "White? Is it a magical beast?" The subordinate went silent, looking closer, then replied, "No, it's not a magical beast. It looks like—" The goblins below strained their ears to hear the answer from the guard. A blade swung out, followed by countless ice shards. They only had time to scream once before they were instantly frozen by Alice's ultimate move. It's that human woman, the one who uses ice." Gargamel panicked and immediately ordered his men to call for reinforcements. "Hey you! Guards, call a large number of goblins to block that girl for me." "It's too late, Prime Minister Gargamel. She has already—" Alice was like a fierce tiger now. Wherever she went, she froze everything in her path. The goblin henchmen huddled together in fear, backing away as one individual with a sword marched steadily toward where Gargamel stood. Alice gritted her teeth. So, this is the place. Her eyes burned with fierce determination and rage, never once leaving Gargamel. Distracted and unnerved by her gaze, he scrambled to plot a way to stop her in her tracks. Gargamel channeled his energy, summoning a fireball aimed at her. "Don't you dare interfere!" Alice didn't hesitate. She surged forward faster, shouting, "Get lost!" She delivered a powerful kick straight to his face, shattering his teeth. That single blow sent him flying into the wall, knocking him unconscious. The guards were terrified. "Gargamel-sama is down. What do we do now, Alice?" With her immense strength, she launched a direct assault into the heart of the stronghold. She scanned her surroundings, puzzled. Why aren't there any humans on the walls? Suddenly, a noise triggered a hidden mechanism. Alice reacted instantly, discovering two goblin soldiers in metal armor ambushing her from inside the walls. A large, burly one joined in. They unleashed a flurry of rapid, relentless attacks. Alice moved with fluid grace, dodging to the side, observing them while she flowed through the combat. Avoiding the debris and the goblin insurgents' strikes, she unleashed a sword strike imbued with an ice technique. The sharp blast caught the mercenaries in a single blow. They took the hit head-on and were instantly restrained. Alice spun, drawing forth more sparkling ice shards. The two goblins were completely immobilized as the frost crept across their bodies. She pointed her blade at them, her voice cold and threatening. "You are the last of those standing in my way. Leave. If you don't want to die, get out of here." Night fell, and as the moon shone bright above, the forest began to rustle with the sounds of torches and weapons moving through the darkness. The heavy thud of footsteps echoed on the ground. Villagers armed with crude tools, torches in hand, their faces etched with fury. Suddenly, movement in the bushes revealed glowing red eyes staring back at them. The villagers froze in terror at what they saw emerging from the thicket. Monsters stepped out from the bushes, weapons drawn, ready to strike at any moment. The armed villagers charged at the goblins. The goblin chieftain, still groggy and sprawled out, woke up to his soldiers shouting, "My lord! Gargamel-sama!" He rubbed his long, bulbous nose. "My nose." The goblin soldier reported, "Gargamel-sama, you're awake." The green goblin reported in a panic, "It's bad. The villagers are attacking." The goblin chieftain was shocked. "What?" Torchlight illuminated the forest and the wind whipped through the trees as the villagers launched a fierce assault. Seeing them breach the walls, Gargamel flew into a rage. "Filthy humans!" one villager roared. "This is the goblins' den! Charge! Kill them all, then link up with Lady Alice to save our wives and daughters!" Seeing this, he sneered. Lowly creatures like humans dare to fight the noble goblin race? Earth, fire, energy, heed my command. Stop these worms. A young man stopped in his tracks, surrounded by small flickers of flame. He looked down at his feet, and suddenly, a wall of fire erupted, sending the villagers into a panic. Those who couldn't run in time had their clothes scorched. Some even caught fire on their backsides. "Help me!" Merlin looked at the wall of fire before him, resting his hand on his hip and sighing. "Wall of fire, huh?" He turned his head, placing a hand on a villager's shoulder. "Hey, buddy, have you seen Henry from the Moonlight Tavern?" The man looked at him, skeptical. How could he possibly be here? Kids aren't supposed to be up on the mountain. He stared into the sea of flames. This brat didn't sneak up here on his own, did he? You just can't leave anyone at peace, can you? A villager wearing a hat saw him walking into the inferno and shouted, "Don't you know there's a Saint Stage powerhouse inside? Just leave everything to that white-haired girl." Merlin glanced back with a look of disdain. "Alice? What's she worth? Just a loser who got beaten by me. Other than being a little cute back then, she's got nothing." The villager stammered, speechless. "I'm telling you." He gripped his sword tight. Suddenly, Merlin raised his sword-wielding arm toward the sky. With a thunderous boom, the wall of fire split into two, creating a safe passage. He opened one eye and looked at them with a smug expression. The villagers stood there, mouths agape, speechless. Merlin stepped into the flames, the sound of his boots echoing, clack, clack. As he ventured deeper, the path began to close behind him, and Merlin's silhouette vanished into the fire. The atmosphere turned silent. The villager in the hat hesitated. "That back? I feel like I've seen it somewhere before." He recalled a vision and suddenly replied, "It's just like that legendary great swordsman who wiped out the pirate army at LG Harbor." All the villagers stood stunned, looking at one another. They couldn't believe it. A powerhouse admired by the masses, whose strength could shake the entire empire, being the same guy they treated like a worthless loser. Someone with no talent who only knew how to trick women to survive? Could it be? The goblin chieftain saw that they couldn't get past his firewall and sneered, "Those outsiders can't cross my wall of fire. I have more pressing matters to deal with now." He pointed at a goblin soldier and ordered, "You, go and capture that swordsman. Bring her to me, and don't alert His Majesty." The soldier looked confused, "But shouldn't we offer that prize to His Majesty?" The goblin chieftain's eyes widened as he barked, "What do you mean by that? I am the most handsome man in the clan. Don't you think I'm equal to His Majesty?" The two soldiers, realizing they had slipped up, quickly said, No, we would never. I will definitely capture that white-haired girl." Just as the two soldiers left, the chieftain was startled by a voice. "Good evening, green-skinned monster." He turned around and saw the intruder who had managed to get inside. How? My wall of fire! How could you possibly pass through it?" "Who are you?" Merlin smiled and said, "I am." His gaze sharpened as he adjusted his coat lapel, looking incredibly cool. The dashing and charming, beloved by all, from the Moonlight Tavern, Little Chrysanthemum. The goblin chieftain looked at him, weary of his confident self-introduction. He remained on guard. What the hell is a Little Chrysanthemum? Let me see just how strong he really is. He activated his appraisal skill, but suddenly, the monster's mana pressure was absolute trash. It didn't even compare to a goblin leader's. In his eyes, the guy was nothing but a weakling. The goblin leader chuckled, while Merlin just calmly replied, "Well, are you scared by my good looks already?" The goblin leader was livid. He launched a fireball, sneering, "Just some trash coming here looking for death? Fine, I'll grant your wish." Merlin just reached out, flicking his hand, and the fire vanished instantly. The goblin stared at him, stunned that he was completely unharmed. Merlin looked up at him and offered a faint smile. The leader thought to himself, What just happened? The technique he used to disperse that fire, it's bizarre. How did he pull that off? Then, the leader unleashed his demonic power. Demonic energy of the burning flame, demonic energy of the cutting gale, obey my command and destroy my enemy. Suddenly, fiery tornadoes began to surround Merlin. The goblin leader leaped into the air, unleashing his blazing fist. A swirling firestorm engulfed Merlin. The goblin watched confidently, smirking through the flames. Let's see how you handle this next part. The storm dissipated. Merlin was still standing there, rock solid and completely unharmed. With his hands on his hips, he mocked, I thought you were some kind of mutant goblin, and that all your stats had reached the SSR rank. Turns out you're not much of a fighter at all. The goblin was so furious he couldn't even get the words out. He could only shriek. The goblin leader conjured a spear wreathed in flames, growling, What kind of magic did you just use? Fine, then. If you want to play dirty, then try this on for size. The sun-piercer spear shot straight at him. Merlin effortlessly caught the spear in his hand. He held the spear up, mocking him. You call this thing a sun-piercer? The goblin's eyes went wide with shock at his raw power. No way! Merlin, surrounded by lingering flames, replied. So this is supposed to send me to hell? Really? The goblin grinned maliciously and snapped his fingers. It's not over yet. The spear Merlin had just thrown to the ground began to crack. The sound of splintering intensified. Suddenly, a massive blast of fire surged toward him. The firestorm swirled with even more terrifying force than before. The villagers watched the pillar of fire in stunned silence. The goblin laughed gleefully. Turn to ash, you piece of trash! Merlin just smirked. He stood tall and waved his hand. The vortex vanished instantly. The goblin's jaw dropped in disbelief. How? How is that possible? Merlin stood there in the middle of the flames, hands tucked into his pockets. Looking cool and managed to pull off a level 2 spell? I'll give you an A for effort, but you're just too weak. Merlin's eyes darkened, and he placed a hand over one eye. With a voice full of contempt, he continued, The thing I hate most is weaklings who love to show off in front of me, especially those who don't know their own limits. He teleported behind the goblin, striking a sword-drawing stance. So just die, you ugly freak. Click. He opened the blade just a crack. An overwhelming pressure filled the air, and a series of slashes echoed out, though nothing could be seen. The goblin stood frozen as cuts appeared all over his face and neck. Blood sprayed from the wounds, and a chunk of his beard fell off. Why? Why didn't you draw your sword to kill me? Merlin held his blade, furrowing his brow as he glanced back. He turned his back, and the goblin vanished in an explosion. He landed lightly, sighing. You're too weak. You're not worth drawing my blade for. Merlin brushed a thin layer of dust off his jacket as he walked away. He muttered nonchalantly. Whoever said my magic was invincible anyway? It's really hard to find a decent opponent. Time to get back to work. A scraping sound echoed through the winding corridors. Masa looked outside anxiously. Suddenly, a loud boom made the girls scream. A guard fell down. A blade flashed, slicing the lock in two. Masa clenched her fists. Ah, you are. Everyone cheered with joy when they saw who arrived. Lady Alice! She finished breaking the bars and asked hurriedly, Is everyone okay? The girls rushed to escape. Masa asked anxiously, Lady Alice, what about Henry? Is he okay? Is he all right? She comforted the innkeeper quickly. Don't worry, Masa. Henry is fine. He's waiting for you back at the village. Mesa trembled, covering her face. Thank goodness. It's so good to hear Henry is safe. Alice put a hand on the innkeeper's shoulder. Let's move now. If we don't, others will show up and it won't be easy to get out. The sound of footsteps clicked against the stone floor. The innkeeper told everyone to hurry. Alice called out, Sile? Is anyone here named Sile? A girl stepped forward, confused. I am Sile. Alice approached her, relieved. Thank goodness. I finally found you. Sile, listen to me closely. Your fiancé has... Sile's eyes widened as she saw something. Her pupils constricted, and she gasped. A giant shadow appeared right behind Alice. She turned around quickly, her arm pushing Sile out of the way. She took a direct hit from the monster's slash. Ugh! It threw her hard against the wall, and Alice spat out a mouthful of blood. Cough! Everyone cried out in worry. Lady Alice! A staff slammed into the ground, followed by a harsh voice. In the time it took me to bathe, a mouse sneaked in and started killing? Why must a king like me have to step in personally? That cat guy is truly useless. He walked over slowly, making clicking, chittering sounds. He reached out toward the young women. You can't escape. Once I catch you, I'll skin you alive. They huddled together in fear. Suddenly, ice pillars erupted from the ground. While he wasn't looking, an ice cage appeared to surround him. Magic flowed from Alice's hand into swirling fragments. As long as I am here, I won't let you hurt them! Blood streamed down from her forehead and the corner of her mouth as she panted. The killer smirked, letting out a wheezing, cackling laugh as he easily shattered the cage. "Oh? A lowly little mouse trying to lock me away with ice? How delusional." She slammed her hand against the ground. "Let's see if you can make it out of my palace alive." "Leaving? I never even considered it." Thorny ice vines erupted everywhere, coiling tightly around him. Alice desperately seized the opening. She gasped. A badge came flying through the air, landing straight in Syle's hand. She realized what it was, a badge bearing a cross and a serpent emblem clearly etched into his palm. Alice squeezed her eyes shut, trying to stay energized. "Syle, Chone isn't dead yet. He's outside waiting for you." She gripped her sword tightly, forcing herself to stand. "Just escape this nightmare and it'll all be over. Everything will go back to the way it was." Syle gripped the badge, tears streaming down, blood mixing with the trail on his nose. Alice spoke softly. "You can go home and get married. You can even have your own children. So gather your courage. Syle, run for your life." Layers of ice sprouted up, trying to shield her snow-white hair. Syle stared at the ice wall, screaming in agony, "Lord Alice!" He tensed his muscles, shattering the thorny vines, and gave a cold grunt. "Alice!" She looked up at the towering goblin. He began to sneer. "You actually dared to risk your life to stop me? As the king of the Goblin clan, this is the first time I've ever looked at a human being with different eyes." The king offered a deal. "I'll be merciful. I'll give you two choices. Throw down your sword and become my queen, or fight me to the bitter end." Alice spat out a mouthful of blood and didn't hesitate. "Fine, enough yapping. I choose the second option." She scoffed internally. Being loved by a goblin? What a joke. My heart only belongs to the legendary Elgin. That strong, righteous man. He spoke coldly, sounding annoyed. "Fine, ungrateful brat. Once I capture you, I'll teach you a lesson." Alice exhaled a cold mist as trails of blue magic radiated from her back. The king bared his teeth in mockery. "Ha ha ha, is this your final death rattle? And here I thought it was some formidable technique. Turns out it's just a light drizzle." Alice didn't care about his words. "I won't give you another chance. Just die quietly under my blade." Wind and snow howled across the gloomy mountain as her wooden sword repeatedly struck the puppet, which had already turned into jagged icicles. A young Alice let out a sigh. "Phew," she said impatiently. "This is so exhausting. If I'm not stabbing straight, what's the point of practicing?" Claudia stood behind her, offering guidance. "You must learn this skill to survive. It's also the key to a counterattack." Alice turned her head, looking puzzled. "Just by relying on such a basic attack? Can it really take down a saint-level powerhouse?" She patiently explained. "Most saint levels are still human. If your thrust can hit their heart, there is a very high probability that it will land a fatal blow. Besides, our great snowy mountain lineage has spent generations mastering both magic and martial arts. The secret lies in versatility. If you combine magic power with battle aura and strike a weak point, then they will either die or be crippled." Alice was confused. "But Master, Saint-level experts aren't that easy to hit." She smiled. "That is where your intelligence comes in. Ambushes, poison, surprise attacks, threats, or coercion, anything works. And if all else fails, you can just take off your clothes and seduce them." Hearing such inappropriate things for a child, Alice's face turned bright red. "Master, you're saying strange things again." She stepped back, taking a defensive stance and gripping her sword. As she prepared to thrust, her eyes widened as if she realized something. A clang echoed out. Henry fell to the ground. "Ow!" The goblin holding the club shouted excitedly. "You cowardly little mouse! To think you could make it into this underground palace!" He was furious. "Damn you! Give my mother back, you green monsters!" He swung his club. "Die!" The boy covered his face, screaming, sweat drenching his brow. But after waiting a while, he felt no pain. He slowly opened his eyes to see Mulan, whose golden sword had sliced the goblin in two. He stood tall, looking at the fallen monster. Henry called out in his daze, "Merlin! Uncle Merlin?" His jaw dropped in shock. So strong. No struggle at all. One hit, one kill." He turned to look at the boy from head to toe. "The momentum you had just now wasn't bad. I'd give you 99 out of 100 points. But because you disobeyed orders and ran into a place this dangerous, I'm deducting 99 points." Merlin said playfully, "Which means your final score is still 0, huh?" All Henry could think about was, Is Uncle Merlin really such a powerful sword saint? His eyes sparkled with admiration. So Uncle Merlin wasn't just bragging all this time. I really misjudged him. Seeing Henry unresponsive, Merlin asked with a hint of concern, "Are you all right?" As soon as he finished speaking, the boy ran over and hugged his leg tightly. I'm okay. Uncle Merlin, please teach me how to draw my blade and strike. Merlin pretended to be annoyed. Before, when I wanted to teach you, you wouldn't learn. Now that you're flattering me and begging to learn, no way. Henry wailed miserably. Uncle Merlin, I'm begging you. I'll kneel down and beg you to teach me. Teach me, Merlin sneered. Oh, so you really are kneeling down to beg me? Didn't you say before that drawing a sword to strike was completely useless? All right, get up. A voice called out from behind. Henry! Merlin! Both turned to see a familiar silhouette. They shouted in unison, Mom! Masa! Sister, are you okay? Henry ran over worriedly, hugging Maria tightly. Mom! Are you okay? I was so worried I could have died. She reached out to embrace her son, answering tenderly, I'm fine, sweetheart. It was Lady Alice who saved us. This place is extremely dangerous. Why did you run here? You asked. Uncle Merlin brought me here. Uncle Merlin is so strong. This giant monster was killed by Uncle Merlin. He stepped forward and muttered to himself, You little brat. This is the kind of situation that's going to cost me a pay cut. Never mind, cancel the original plan. He drew his blade, slashing forward. Maza looked up nervously. Is what Henry said true? Then can you go and provide reinforcements for Lady Alice? She's fighting the Emperor all by herself to save us. I'm afraid she's no match for him. Merlin held him back, his words trailing off. Over there, Alice's sword fell to the ground. Heh. The enemy laughed gleefully. Alice was startled, gritting her teeth. What? How was I discovered? He gripped her tightly in his hand. I already figured out that this little storm of yours was just nothing but a distraction. I've been waiting a long time for you. He danced around smugly, mocking her. How annoying. So you came to find your own death? Let's see where you run to now. He squeezed her hard until her body made a crunching sound. Alice let out a piercing scream, which echoed through the hallway along with his booming laughter. Maza pleaded desperately. Can you go and help Lady Alice? She's fighting the Emperor alone to save us. I'm afraid she's no match for him. Merlin looked confused. Wait, why should I? He suddenly stopped, thinking, hold on, if I save Alice, wouldn't that improve my chances of becoming an adventurer? Although that was what he was thinking, Merlin still stood there with his arms spread, acting indifferent. Maza, what kind of person do you take me for? Do I look like someone who only sees dollar signs? Maza and Henry looked at him, speechless and helpless. Merlin broke into a cold sweat and shouted at them, implicitly admitting it. He rubbed his head and said, Fine, doing Alice a favor isn't a bad deal. Maza clapped her hands joyfully upon hearing Merlin's agreement. That's great, the gentle shopkeeper advised. Then be careful, okay? Henry, with rosy cheeks, added, You must teach me swordsmanship, Uncle Merlin. Merlin turned away, giving them a smile before walking off with a carefree stride. Everyone head to safety and wait there. Kakata! Bring that silly silver-haired girl back! A tragic scream echoed through the corridor as the monster squeezed Alice hard, laughing with sick pleasure as he watched her suffer. Squeak, 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 that's it, that's the look, that's the sound. Truly a masterpiece, I'm getting more and more interested in you. Sweat poured down Alice's face as she gritted her teeth in agony. Suddenly, blood splattered as ice spikes pierced the monster's arm, forcing him to gasp in surprise. The ceiling had already been frozen with hundreds of sharp ice spikes. Zip couldn't believe it. When did you? Alice smirked. Ice bone. Heavenly punishment. Dozens of spikes rained down, piercing him and making him groan. Ah. Alice was dropped to the ground with a thud. Zip roared in anger. You dare trick me again? She stood up, sword in hand. This is the price for underestimating me. Now, I'll let you taste the swordsmanship of our great snow mountain. With that, she lunged forward with incredible speed. Zip gritted his teeth in pain, his eyes wide. Blood sprayed everywhere as Alice's 3 strikes slashed through him. Level 1. Blood sprayed from his wrist like a fountain. She shifted her stance, whispering, Level 2. Her sword pierced through his throat, making his eyes bulge, the red veins standing out against the whites of his eyes. The weapon in her hand had now transformed into jagged, razor-sharp shards of ice. Level 3. She drove it straight into his heart. Zip stumbled back, blood spewing from his throat. Hoo! Ah! Ah! He collapsed with a heavy thud, leaving a gaping hole where his heart used to be. Alice held her arm, catching her breath as she looked at the dead king sitting there. Just as she let out a sigh of relief, phew, it's finally over. Suddenly, rays of light shot past. Alice turned her head in surprise. Huh? Golden beams were converging from Zip's corpse, radiating intense light right from the spot where she had pierced his heart. Unexpectedly, it was closing up. Alice couldn't help but be shocked. The wound in his heart? It's healing? Zip, who had been sitting motionless, suddenly snapped his eyes wide open. He let out a crazed laugh as his clothes ripped apart. Alice's eyes widened in horror. Why? Why aren't you dead yet? I clearly pierced through your heart. Even if you were Saint Lavelle, you should... He let out a grotesque laugh. Squeak, squeak, squeak! Zip pointed at his chest. Our goblin hearts are on the right side, not the left. Didn't you get a proper education? He then arrogantly declared, the so-called knowledge changes destiny. That was just me being careless. I won't hold back anymore. Alice frowned in annoyance. He stomped his foot and swung his staff. Die! She immediately raised her hand to cast an ice wall. Zip bared his teeth in mockery. You think a mere ice wall can block my attack? He smashed his staff, shattering it, and struck Alice directly. She flew straight through the pillars. In agony, she coughed up blood as she slammed into the wall. Ah! He approached Alice, who was whimpering in pain, and laughed like a rodent as he grabbed her by the hair. Squeak, squeak, squeak! Be my prisoner forever, Alice! She winced in pain, blood streaming from her forehead and mouth. Suddenly, Zip heard the sound of wind. He turned his head. Merlin had already caught Alice before anyone noticed. But Zip remained calm. Another mouse has snuck into my underground fortress? He was shocked to see his own severed arm and shrieked, What? He roared in anger. You! Merlin ignored his rage. Oh, don't tell me. To risk your life like that for someone who has nothing to do with you. Even if you wanted to pout and scold, you didn't have to put your own life on the line. You really are an absolute idiot. Merlin placed the unconscious Alice against a nearby pillar. It's so strange to see you acting this gentle for the first time, but you're not done yet. He turned and walked away. I'm done teasing you, you two-faced warrior. Just rest up for a bit. Leave the rest to me. Alice groggily opened her eyes. She vaguely felt Merlin's silhouette merge with the person she admired. That strong, reliable back filled with conviction. It's not vague at all. You came to save me, just when I was in danger. Alice closed her eyes in exhaustion. Lord Elgin. Merlin. Merlin stopped upon hearing her mumble. I really like you. He turned his head in surprise. Huh? He asked, full of suspicion. What are you saying, you little fool? Zip stepped forward. Are you done challenging me yet? So can we continue our little game now? At this moment, Merlin had shed his usual demeanor, his eyes cold as he looked at him. Alice leaned weakly against the pillar, while Zip's voice echoed, I thought there was only one mouse, scurrying into my lair. Scuttling sounds echoed as he mocked. I didn't expect another one to sneak in. He looked at his severed arm. To think you cut off my right hand before I could even react. You've got some skills indeed, but tendrils of blood and flesh grew from the stump on his arm, and in an instant, Zip's hand was fully restored. He boasted, In my berserk state, any injury I sustain can be instantly healed. Then, Zip gritted his teeth. Challenging me at a time like this, you're just walking to your death. Merlin suddenly smiled brightly. I'll kill anyone with a single strike. If you can actually defeat me, then that's exactly what I was hoping for. Zip sneered upon hearing this. Without hesitation, he swung his weapon at Merlin. The club smashed down, shattering the floor as the tiles warped and buckled under the sheer force. Merlin effortlessly caught it with one hand, leaving Zip in disbelief. You actually blocked a blow from me? You're clearly no ordinary person. May I ask your name? Merlin flicked the club away and smiled lightly. Someone of your level isn't even qualified to know my name. Zip, hearing this, decided to introduce himself first. Fine, I'll declare my lineage then. I am Zip, one of the 12 emperors of the elf tribe and the most talented individual in my clan. Before long, I will launch an even larger scale assault. I will unify the Welsh lands, become the new ruler of humanity. He reached out a massive hand. If you are willing, I can appoint you as Prime Minister, above all others, and below only me. Merlin's lips curled upward, and he let out a loud, boisterous laugh. Pfft! Ha ha! That's hilarious! Where do you get the nerve to try and recruit me? Merlin pointed to the sky and declared arrogantly, In this world, there is no one who can ride on my head. Not even the goddess of light herself, should she descend, would stand a chance. Looking straight at his own glorious splendor, he eyed him with mockery. Just having you become fertilizer for my garden is an insult to myself. Zip was so angry that the veins in his forehead bulged. He stomped fiercely on the floor, cracking the tiles as he leaped up and lunged toward Merlin. If you refuse to drink the toast, you shall drink the forfeit. Merlin struck a pose, mocking him. Oh, how bloated! You're as fat as a pig, and yet you can fly so high? Zip raised his club high. Humph! I'll send a cocky person like you to hell with my own hands. Take this! Powerful beams of light descended like lightning as he unleashed his technique. Elf secret art! Heavy command! Merlin glanced at him and let out a scoff, then slammed his staff down. The ground shattered, and the pillars snapped into pieces and collapsed. He looked at the staff embedded in the ground, feeling triumphant. Chi, chi, chi. Even a high-level being would be smashed to pulp by this hit, leaving nothing behind. Suddenly a faint, mocking voice called out, Ha ha, is this really your strongest move? Zip stared in shock as Merlin stepped onto his staff. What? Merlin placed his hand on the hilt of his sword. Then it's my turn now. Light exploded in an instant, and a streak of gold traced along Zip's body. He turned his head back, seemingly unscathed. You managed to escape my secret art, and you're still waiting for a counterattack? Worthy of my attention. As if realizing something, Zip's eyes filled with horror. The slash from a moment ago finally took effect, causing Zip to spray blood. He stared wide-eyed at the wound. It exceeded my healing limit. How is that possible? Merlin sheathed his sword. I was always curious who started this whole mess, but you're so easy to beat. It's truly disappointing. Then Zip trembled and demanded, Who exactly are you? Being this strong, you're definitely not a nobody. He commented indifferently as he clicked his sword back into its sheath. Honestly, I'm not even strong. It's just that you're too weak. You don't even deserve the title of king, let alone have the qualifications to fight me. Merlin glanced at the cracked wall and checked his own hands. Ha! Even though it was a quick win like usual, you're certainly worthy of being a St. Level opponent. I can actually feel it a bit now. Bricks from the aftershocks of the battle began to fall, revealing a mountain of gold coins and sparkling treasure hidden inside. Merlin prepared to leave, then suddenly turned back. Right, I should take this idiot girl back, that is. Looking at the gleaming, rare hoard, the elf treasure, Merlin drooled, his eyes glued to the loot. The feeling of being blinded by gold coins, this is great. Is this my dream of living a life of leisure and waiting for death finally coming true? A brick suddenly fell onto his head, cutting his joy short. Seeing the ceiling about to collapse and rubble falling continuously, oh no, the battle must have caused the structure to cave in. Merlin surveyed the treasure. If I were quick, I could carry a lot of it, but if I lose time, there's no way I can get this idiot girl out. He looked over at Alice with concern. I would be fine. But if she ends up buried alive in here, she's a goner for sure. On one side, enough wealth to live comfortably for a long time. On the other, the life of a young girl in her prime. Merlin. With a powerful kick, he sent the pillars crashing down. He scooped Alice up and bolted from the crumbling ruins, grumbling as he ran. Damn it, Alice! You really are the jinx of my life. You owe me big time. Hundreds of millions in gold, do you hear me? If you don't find me a job when we get back, we are going to have a serious problem. Meanwhile, the boys cheered at the sight of their loved ones. Daughters who had escaped the castle happily called out for their fathers. Andrew, my love! They burst into tears, hugging each other tight. The village chief pointed in panic. Look, everyone! Right in the middle of the mountain range! It's collapsing! Smoke billowed everywhere, and the villagers gasped in shock. The mountain is falling! Wait, isn't that the underground palace of the goblins? Henry grew anxious and called out, Merlin! Uncle! Big sister! Suddenly, a hand rested on his trembling shoulder. Masha smiled to reassure him. Don't worry, Merlin is incredibly smart. He'll surely turn a crisis into an opportunity. Hearing this, the boy felt a surge of confidence. Yeah! The village chief's jaw dropped. A hazy figure emerged from the smoke. Merlin was carrying the unconscious Alice out. Everyone cheered. Merlin! Lady Alice! The villagers rushed toward them, their attitudes having done a complete 180. I was blind before. I won't stop my mother from working for you ever again. You actually managed to save her. So you're not just a useless gigolo after all. You've got skills. He just gave a strained smile amidst the flood of praise. Ha ha ha! Internally, Merlin was bawling his eyes out at the thought of his treasure having grown wings and flown away. What kind of hero am I? I'm never doing this for free again. Someone give me back my gold. Later, at the moonlit tavern, the lights were on. Alice, covered in cuts and bruises, lay still on the bed. Merlin watched her, diagnosing the situation. This idiot is seriously hurt. If I don't treat her, it could get dangerous. He suddenly gave a sleazy smirk. Heh, heh. You were always so rude to me, but now you're lying there letting me do whatever I want. This is fate, baby. Merlin reached out toward her. Honestly, I never thought I'd get the chance to play with your body one day. The wind howled outside the window, as if mocking his words. Cough, cough, all joking aside, what I'm about to do is definitely not taking advantage of you. A patient must see a doctor, right? You get me? Alice groggily opened her eyes. Ah! She jerked upright. Ow! A splitting headache hit her. What happened? Last night, the Goblin Emperor's staff attacked. And then, the legendary sword aura of Elgin appeared. Ugh, I can't remember anything. Masha brought in a basin of warm water and a clean cloth. Lady Alice, you're awake! The tavern owner clasped her hands with a joyful smile. I couldn't sleep all night. Seeing you're okay, I can finally rest easy. Alice felt sheepish. I'm sorry. She froze when Masha told her how badly she'd been injured. You really scared us! If it weren't for Merlin saving you... The moment she heard that, Alice's face twisted and she broke into a cold sweat. She hesitated. That Lucifer guy? The third one? The one who always talks like a jerk and acts so lazy? The guy who doesn't care about anything? How was the one who actually saved me? The tavern owner seemed oblivious to Alice's current state. Did you two have some kind of misunderstanding? Everyone makes mistakes. You should give him a chance to make it right. Besides, you're both ex-lovers. It's not good to stay at odds forever. Why not take this chance to bury the hatchet? Alice's inner world exploded. Misunderstanding? We look like arch enemies, don't we? She protested. It's not like that. We are not ex-lovers. Masha gave her a knowing, experienced look. I understand. Lady Alice is just shy because she's so young. Alice cried an entire river of tears internally. It's ruined. The more I try to wipe it clean, the worse it gets. But she quickly regained her composure. Being a hero rescued by a demon king was a huge humiliation, but it was the truth. Still, she couldn't owe a debt like this. Alice asked, Masha, could you please call Merlin here? The wind rustled through the window. As Merlin walked up the stairs and neared Alice's room, he heard a voice from inside. Lady Alice, thank you. She shyly waved it off. You don't need to do that. As long as you two are safe, that's all that matters. We were covered in wounds, but thanks to Sile helping us, we had to express our gratitude. If not for your heroic intervention, we wouldn't have made it this far. You are our savior! Merlin leaned against the wall outside, listening. We will never forget this kindness. He gave a faint, cynical smile to himself. It's clearly just some stupid sense of justice. But to think it could actually move people. Maybe it's because Alice possesses a kind of strength that pushes forward, a power that makes ordinary people believe in her. He watched. Sile carefully helped Chan away on crutches. I then turned and walked in to check on her, catching Alice by surprise. Oh? Is Alice's health improving? She glared at him. He arrogantly sat in a chair. Masha said you were looking for me. Speak up, what is it? Alice blushed and averted her eyes. Since you specially ran over to save me, I'll grudgingly say thank you. There, are you happy? She turned her face away haughtily. Of course, don't get the wrong idea. I just don't hate you at this very moment. That doesn't mean I'm forgiving you. Merlin's jaw hit the floor at the sight. Wait, why is this not going according to the script in my head? Even if she isn't offering herself in return, shouldn't she at least be crying her eyes out? He thought this, and ended up saying it out loud. She haughtily turned away. Don't get the wrong idea, I just don't hate you at this very moment, that's all. Refusing to show she was actually forgiving him, Merlin just stared in open-mouthed shock at the scene. Why isn't this going according to the script in my head? If she isn't going to swear her life to me, she should at least be sobbing her eyes out, right? He thought this, and then said it out loud. I'm not saying I need you to repay me, and I couldn't save you anyway. He leaned in close to Alice's face and said, like this, I want to become an adventurer. Can you introduce me? She furrowed her brows and shouted, No way, that's impossible! Merlin's smug, punchable face was truly disappointing. Is this really how you treat your savior? She pointed a finger right at his face and barked, If you hadn't dragged me into this mess, I might have considered it. Sure, you saved me, but don't you dare dream of me helping you with anything. He turned away, continuing to mock her. Fine, fine, fine. Tomorrow, I'll tell all those bards that the 233rd hero is nothing but a petty, ungrateful brat. Alice clenched her fist and warned, If you dare insult my honor, I won't let you get away with it. Merlin wasn't afraid at all. He calmly replied, You're threatening me, but you don't even know your own standing. He turned away nonchalantly. If you want to be that stubborn, then I have nothing more to say. By tomorrow, the whole country will know that Alice, the former hero, is just a petty, dishonorable person. She hurriedly raised her hands. Wait, don't go! A smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. Merlin knew he'd gotten what he wanted. This idiot Alice, does she just love being kicked around? She'll obediently be my stepping stone to enter the upper class. That night, the wind howled through the jagged ruins of the goblin lair. Amidst the empty rubble, suddenly, a massive force caused it to explode. High heels clicked against the ground as she approached. Kelowna surveyed the surroundings. Well, well, well. She flicked her feather fan while looking up at the night sky. Caught up at last. If it weren't for today's headlines, I wouldn't have known the goblin lineage. Was hiding in the underground of Wales, Kelowna muttered as she spotted something. Oh my, oh my. Ah, look at that staff covered in dirt and rocks. Found you. A violet light flew from her hand, gently lifting the weapon, which was 3 times her size. Kelowna commanded, Come now, show me your true form. The staff began to crack with a clanging sound, transforming into square blocks. As they dispersed, they revealed a floating ancient key inside. It flew into Kelowna's hand. Oh, ha ha! She grinned from ear to ear. The 3rd key to the Hell Legion is finally mine. The key shimmered brilliantly. Kelowna gripped it tightly. I never expected to actually find this key. Though it was a little too easy, wasn't it? A black vortex appeared on the ceiling, and a voice spoke out, Kelowna. She knelt down respectfully. My liege. The black hole widened. Have you acquired the key? Kelowna replied, Yes. The voice echoed from the other side. It seems the legends are true. The key was in the hands of the Sarkar lineage. No wonder they haven't moved. Heading south to join the kingdom was clearly to protect the key. Kelowna bowed her head reverently. It seems you're right. I never imagined they would hide it so deep. The one called my liege praised her cheerfully. Very good. The plan to restore the former kingdom is already on schedule. We only need the energy of the Hell Legion. Then we can finally wait for the day we overthrow the Empire. She looked up, her eyes filled with loyalty. Yes. Kelowna is willing to offer her soul for the restoration of the kingdom. Everyone stood at the city gate to see Alice and Merlin off early in the morning. Goodbye, Lady Alice. Goodbye, big sister. Little chrysanthemum brother, don't go. The donkey cart clattered along the dirt road. Merlin winked and waved. Henry, take good care of your mother. The boy shouted excitedly. Don't worry, big brother Merlin. Once I've mastered my battle aura, I'll come to West Ham to find you. Mesa also waved happily, shouting a message. Merlin, marry Lady Alice soon. You have to be happy. Merlin clutched his chest in pain. Is that a curse on me? That's too terrifying. Just then, Alice helplessly covered her forehead. Tell me about it. They're so grown up. That is the most vicious curse I have ever heard. Never in my life. The air between them suddenly froze. She exploded in anger and shouted, You useless man! Hey, you dare look down on me? He shouted back. I should be the one saying that. Look at yourself. Who are you to look down on this great master? He pointed right at her face and pouted. At least people came out to see me off. She pulled out the padding from her chest. Look, look, look. Who else came to see you off? Caught in a lie, Alice blushed and clutched her chest, retorting, The idol of those elderly women? What's there to be proud of? I only use padding for shock absorption. It's not to hide my own flaws. Merlin laughed until he had tears in his eyes under her annoyed glare. Ha 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 ha! What kind of fresh, otherworldly excuse is that? Tell me. Are you trying to make me die of laughter to avoid paying me back? Enraged, Alice kicked him off the cart. She grabbed onto the frame, trying to shove Merlin down. You still dare talk? You're so poor you couldn't even afford a ticket to Westham. And you insist on hitching a ride! Get off now! Merlin stubbornly grabbed Alice's leg. I won't! This donkey cart is so slow you should be honored I'm riding it. The moment this great lord stepped onto this piece of junk cart, it was upgraded by half a level. Can't you feel it? She couldn't stand his shameless talk. No, I don't! Get lost, you lecherous demon king! I don't want to see you! The donkey cart swayed continuously. As their chaotic bickering flew back and forth, Masa rested her cheek on her hand, admiring them. It seems like they have a really good relationship. Even the donkey seemed helpless as Alice and Merlin kept arguing. The road ahead to Wrexham wasn't boring at all, with the pair bickering noisily on the cart. Merlin and Alice were either bickering or fuming at each other. Just like that, a week flew by. The train arrived at the magnificent capital on a beautiful, sunny day. Alice looked completely exhausted, but her soul was soaring with joy. Finally, we're almost there. Almost back at the guild. He squeezed his fist, brimming with excitement. Once I get that massive reward money, this airhead will be nothing but jealous and envious. At the two-story building of the Wrexham Adventurers Guild, Merlin stomped inside, while Alice followed, looking bored. Suddenly, the two were caught off guard by a sudden commotion. The blue orb glowed intensely as the man touched it. He didn't seem surprised by the color at all, but the crowd around them started buzzing. Holy rank! Could it really be Holy Rank? Oh my god, who is he? Merlin asked, curious. Alice, is Holy Rank really that impressive? Like an elf emperor, she explained with a serious face. It's all about tiers. Our entire guild, including the old guildmaster, only has 3 Holy Rankers. I didn't expect another one to show up today. He laughed behind his hand. That few? Back when I was a demon lord, I had tons of Holy Rank subordinates. Someone walked up. Nice one, Alice. Bringing back an old flame? Hot Best stumbled over with a beer mug in hand. Poor kid Amos is probably crying his eyes out in the bathroom right now. He slung his arm around Merlin's shoulder. Hey, little brother, how did you manage to tame this wild horse? Share your secrets, will ya? Alice glared and drew her sword. Hot Best, that is not what's happening. Keep running your mouth and I won't hold back. But he wasn't afraid of her threats. He just teased her playfully. You start swinging your blade every time someone says something you don't like, you'll never find a man. Look at Rukia. She's sweet, soft-spoken, and charming. Someone just gave her roses a while ago. Aren't you even a little jealous? This left her flustered, and she quickly toned down her aggressive aura. I am not jealous. Rukia, happy to see Alice, called out from the reception counter. Alice, over here. She turned. Oh, hey, Rukia. Then, Rukia asked excitedly, long time no see. Did you get any big hauls this time? But Alice dodged that eager gaze. About that, don't even ask. Alice sighed, and when asked if she was here for a new quest, she said gloomily, No, I'm just here to introduce someone. She pointed behind her. This is Merlin. I want to be an adventurer. Merlin greeted confidently. Hello, beautiful lady, that's me. Rukia's eyes widened. A man? She bit her handkerchief in frustration. Alice, when did you get a boyfriend? I don't approve. How can you get married before me? Clearly I'm more popular than you. Smack. Alice's hand started smoking. Relax, we are not in a relationship like that. Rukia finally calmed down and asked, Oh, really? Then what's going on? Alice glared at Merlin and explained, It's just for some special business. I needed to help him get set up. I was wanted by some restaurant owners. He's basically a fugitive. Rukia grinned. Is that so? So, then you've come to the right place. Join the Adventurers Guild, and your bounty will be waived. You can work off your debt here. Merlin was both surprised and happy. I can actually get my bounty waived? That's perfect. She guided him kindly. All right, let's test your strength first. Strength determines your starting rank. There are 5 ranks. Black iron, white silver, gold, mithril, and violet gold. Merlin, wondering, the higher the rank, the better the benefits? She eagerly explained, Of course, the monthly stipends and privileges are all different. Higher-level quests pay way more commissions. He rested his chin on his hand, muttering, If I can't take the highest-paying quests, then being an adventurer is pointless. Rukia smiled. If your starting rank is a bit low, don't worry. Even if your strength isn't top tier, you can still climb the ranks through years of adventuring experience. So just take on plenty of quests. Then she paused as if remembering something. Oh, Rukia. She immediately gave an example. I remember this one motivated old guy, 102 years old. He finished 9,999,999 low-level quests and finally became a white-silver adventurer. Truly worth celebrating! Merlin was speechless at their ranking method. Then she suggested another way. Of course, there's a shortcut. Just increase your strength. Once your power grows, your rank will rise automatically. Merlin looked confused. Huh? Doesn't that just mean proving yourself through your own strength anyway? That old guy was just wasting his life. Rukia picked up a stack of papers. The Adventurers Guild is very fair. Even if you're a violet gold adventurer, if you go a long time without working or cause a bad influence on society, you'll be demoted. It's not impossible to be demoted all the way back to black iron. She pointed to the blue crystal orb. Go ahead, Merlin. Sir, please place your hand forward. Based on your strength, the crystal will reflect different colors. Merlin had a perverted look on his face as he stared at Rukia's chest. Touching the crystal to measure strength is way too boring. Hey, author, let's negotiate and make it touching breasts instead. He stepped up to the crystal ball. Then, Merlin shouted with great confidence, I shall show mercy and display the overwhelming power of the arrogant monarch. Tremble before me, you lowly mortals. The other adventurers watched him nervously, but the crystal ball didn't react at all. Everyone stared blankly while Merlin felt embarrassed. Rukia opened her mouth awkwardly. She scratched her cheek in distress. Oh, that's a shame, Mr. Merlin. There's zero reaction. In that case, you can't become an adventurer. His laughter echoed throughout the guild hall. Everyone was clutching their stomachs, laughing uncontrollably. Is this for real? So, you still want to be an adventurer? I'm afraid you couldn't even take down a goblin. Who gave you the nerve? No matter what you've got, this is a high-risk profession. Are you a little dense? At the very least, you need to reach the lowest rank of strength. Alice grabbed Merlin's arm and whispered, What are you doing? How do you have zero magic power or aura? Merlin looked bored and didn't even want to answer. When mentioning it, she added, You've seen me fight, right? Do I ever use any of that stuff? It's not that I don't want to use it, I just don't have any. She couldn't believe it. What? Then how have you beaten so many monsters? He sighed. My quick draw skill level is pretty high. Basically, whoever I fight, I kill in a single second. I never need to use magic or aura to fight. Alice was so shocked she stuttered, Ho! How? Sword skills that don't need energy? Merlin calmly turned his head and said, Look, just consider me a freak, all right? Didn't you say I could become an adventurer just by being introduced? Alice pouted, puffing out her cheeks, and walked over to the front desk to ask Rukia. Can't I vouch for this guy? She reached out and insisted, I guarantee he can handle this job. Rukia looked hesitant and explained, Years ago, headquarters banned adventurers formed by ordinary people. The rules are clear now. The guild cannot accept anyone without at least the lowest level of strength. Merlin tapped his foot on the chair. If you guys are willing to trust a tiny, pathetic crystal ball, then the solution is simple. He then boldly shouted out loud, Call the strongest person in your guild to spar with me. If I win, all these problems are solved, right? Alice was speechless, while Rukia was frantically trying to stop him. Mr. Merlin, please don't joke around like that. She couldn't believe it, thinking she'd never seen a situation like this before. He just arrived and immediately wanted to challenge the strongest member of the guild. But Merlin remained firm, his hand on his sword hilt, and challenged them in a low voice. I'm not joking. If you all want to come at me together, I would be more than happy to welcome you. Suddenly, an old man walked over with a cane. He looked intrigued, stroking his white beard. How about this old man tests your strength instead? A voice echoed behind Merlin. So should this old man come and test your strength, Everyone was shocked by the arrival of Taylor. Oh my God! The Guildmaster! Is the Guildmaster stepping in personally? Rukia introduced him. Zarata, 70 years old. A saint-ranked powerhouse who can destroy a behemoth with a single punch. He's also a star in the fighting world, the #1 fighter in Wales. My self-created thunderclap fighting style is invincible. Do you dare to accept the challenge? The old man stroked his beard. I've seen plenty of young punks who don't know the immensity of the world. If I don't move these old bones, people will think our West Ham Guild has run out of fighters. Merlin didn't flinch. Just what I wanted. Let's start immediately. Taylor led the way. This place is too small. There's a large training field out back. Let's go. He tilted his head. Everyone else, please don't follow. This is a match between this old man and this young man. Alice asked, confused. Why is it like this? Rukia explained. Grandpa is worried that if the gap in strength is too large, the onlookers will hurt the challenger's pride. Every year, Saint-ranked powerhouses come to challenge him, and they all end up leaving in defeat. She was stunned. Even Saint-ranked? Rukia continued. Not only that, my father said that ever since Grandpa reached the Saint rank, he has never lost. Meanwhile, Merlin and Taylor had already entered the training field. Taylor made a gesture. You are an ordinary person, and I am a Saint-ranked fighter. So, attack with all your might. If I take even one step back, I lose. Merlin repeated, Oh, all-out attack? He got into position. Fine by me. Old man, don't blink because I draw my sword very quickly. Taylor remained calm. Come on, let me see what you've got. Merlin instantly drew his sword and lunged. Taylor was shocked by the speed of his strike. The sword path, which nearly split Taylor's face in two, shattered the floor behind him. The friction from the blade almost hit the onlookers. Whoa! The slash left a long gouge in the road behind the training field, destroying nearby buildings. The training hall itself was damaged, and wall stones clattered down. Merlin's sword stopped just inches from Taylor's face. The old man was so terrified he collapsed to the ground. Taylor stuttered, How is this possible? Merlin stood there calmly. Don't worry, it was just the blunt side of the blade. Merlin sheathed his sword. If I had used the edge to attack, you'd be dead right now. The old man thought to himself, if I had gone all out. No, even if I had gone all out, I would have been killed in one strike. Taylor was baffled. Who exactly is this young man? At the guild building, Taylor and Alice left. The people in the guild waved goodbye. Rukia sighed. That old flame of Alice's seems really arrogant, but he's just an ordinary person. Grandpa, why did you fight him like that? Was it necessary to show your full strength? It's a good thing no one got hurt, but the road is ruined. We're going to have to pay a lot for that. People behind her whispered, I can't believe it. What actually happened just now? Why would a tiny, ordinary person make the guildmaster that furious, that high-level sword technique? Guildmaster! Why did you break the rules and give him the adventurer's certification? Taylor slammed his cane onto the floor. Instantly, everyone fell silent in fear. He tried to maintain his dignity. Silence, you old fogey. I have my own arrangements. Let's leave it at that for today. And don't bring it up ever again. Outside, the wind was howling, and the townspeople were looking bewildered at the ruins left behind by the recent battle. Alice stared at the perfectly good road that had been turned into giant craters. Merlin, however, was beaming at the badge in his hand. Heh, heh, he chuckled, remembering what the old man said. Mana and combat prowess are the standards. The guild headquarters' only evaluation. This stubborn old man really made an exception to force me in. He held the badge, turning it over in his hand. Engraved on it were the words, Wallisham's District, name, Merlin. Lucifer, occupation, common farmer. He felt a bit dissatisfied. Iron rank? Seriously? And one full tier lower than this silly girl's gold rank? Alice, clearly unhappy, interrogated him. Speak. Did you really beat our guild leader? Merlin smiled faintly. Doesn't count, I suppose. In my book, only death counts as a real defeat, but I guess I showed a little bit of my strength. He remarked that her guild leader was quite mediocre. If I had to be generous, maybe he's a tiny bit stronger than the 7 generals I had under my command back in the day. She looked devastated. All that fame across the continent, the legendary martial arts star, the great battle of Behemoth, all those flashy titles meant absolutely nothing to Merlin. In his eyes, it was all trash. How many years of grueling training will it take for me to defeat Merlin? I guess washing away this humiliation is impossible, isn't it? Damn it! Suddenly, Merlin gripped the badge tightly in his hand and cheered excitedly. Even though it was a bit of a hassle starting today, I'm an adventurer too. Finally, I can live the mindless life of killing monsters and getting paid. I'm going to buy the most magnificent mansion in the country. Alice was speechless. Keep dreaming. Being able to afford your rent would be a miracle, she retorted, mocking the lowest-ranking adventurer. Could you just stop overthinking everything for once? Just go home, take a bath, and sleep. You can have anything you want in your dreams. Her words hit him like an arrow. Ugh, I'm not giving up. You're just a higher rank, that's all. Tomorrow, I'm going to pick up a huge commission and make more money in one go than you could make in 15 years. Go ahead and get mad. Alice Fuller, suit yourself. Either way, we're done with each other now. Merlin gritted his teeth. Fine, don't let me see you again. He walked away decisively, but suddenly, his footsteps faltered. He frantically dug through his pockets. In his hand were nothing but some horse racing betting slips, not a single gold coin to be found. A question rose from the depths of Merlin's soul. Where am I supposed to sleep tonight? It started to drizzle. He held up a box of matches. Ma'am, would you like to buy a box of matches? Merlin hunched over, trying to make a sale. Sir, buy some matches. They're moisture-proof. He struck a match to try and keep warm. So cold, so hungry. His eyes reflected a sense of contemplation. He was about to be homeless. If I had known, I wouldn't have spent all my money on horse racing. The match burned out and was tossed aside. Haimad, a decision, straightened his back and marched off. He was going to find Alice and mooch off her. Meanwhile, at the inn, the rain was pouring down. Inside, a hand scrubbed thoroughly in the hot water. Alice was happily soaking in the bathtub, calculating, Ha! Who would ever give a job to a low-level iron rank? He won't get any high-level commissions. What will he live on? Ugh, it makes me so mad. She put her hands together and prayed to the gods. Great ones, please make that jerk Merlin sleep on the streets like a vagrant. Alice even wished, better yet, make him go hungry and cold. Let him sell matches and have no one notice him. Outside, Merlin couldn't help but feel a tickle and sneezed. It was getting late. Outside, the heavy rain never stopped. Alice was still lost in the warmth of her tub when suddenly, the doorbell rang. The person outside wouldn't stop pressing it. She complained wearily, so impatient. Is this for money? Seriously? I just got back. She slipped into her sandals, moving slowly toward the door, wrapped only in a bath towel. As soon as she opened it, she said curtly, Landlady, it's so late. Why are you especially— Before she could finish, she looked closely at the person. Alice's face flashed with surprise. Merlin stood before her, striking a cool pose. Good evening, Alice. Are you feeling lonely? Do you need a loving hug? Here is a top-tier handsome man absolutely waiting for you to sign for him. Experience first class, dedicated service. You deserve it. Just let me stay for a few days. A silence hung in the air like a frozen painting. All that could be heard was the pouring rain and the howling wind. Without hesitation, she raised her leg and kicked him right in the face. Because Alice felt nothing but hostility toward Merlin, his seduction strategy was completely useless. I was sent flying back a good distance. She slammed the door shut. I don't care how you found this place. Whatever you do, don't come and bother me again. Treated without a shred of mercy, Merlin held his scratched face and complained, This woman is dangerous. Suddenly, someone behind him spoke up. Who are you? What are you doing in front of my house? Alice went back to the tub to continue her soak. But not long after, the doorbell rang again, making her incredibly annoyed. She didn't think twice. Furthermore, she immediately grabbed the sword by the table, full of rage, ready to deal with the jerk who ruined her quiet time. I can't take it anymore! Merlin, you bastard, don't push your luck. Are you finished yet? I already told you. Before she could finish, she saw the displeased face of an old woman. She froze. Landlady? Merlin stood behind the old woman, hands on his hips, smiling triumphantly. The landlady noticed what Alice was holding and warned, Ms. Alice, the lease clearly states that you are not allowed to brandish swords inside the house. She hurriedly hid it behind her back. I'm sorry. Someone was still cowering behind the landlady's back. Merlin suddenly raised his voice, feigning a stern, lecturing tone. What are you making such a mess for, brandishing your sword around someone else's home? Have you no shame? Put that blade away now. Alice, despising being lectured by someone she couldn't stand, was incredibly annoyed. Who do you think you are? What gives you the right to boss me around? He successfully pushed her buttons, then turned away with a smug, triumphant grin. Suddenly the landlady chimed in, reminding her once more, Miss Alice, please mind your attitude. She spoke like a mother teaching her daughter how to treat a husband. I may be an outsider, but I have to say something. You two have barely been married, and you're already fighting like this. How are you going to live like this later on? The mention of the word married made Alice's jaw drop in shock. She pointed a finger at Merlin, stammering to clear her name. Mar married? No, this guy and I have nothing to do with each other. Suddenly, her defense was cut off. Merlin, instead of dousing the flames he'd ignited, poured more gasoline on them. Are you still angry with me? Why say such hurtful things? We aren't married yet, are we? And he didn't stop there. The old lady's words from behind only added to her pressure. Miss Alice, if you keep acting like this, I'm afraid I can't keep renting my house to you. I'm genuinely worried that one day, if you're unhappy, you'll just wreck my home. Hitting her weak spot, Alice quickly waved her hands to clarify. No, no, how could I? I don't usually pull my sword out in the house. Hearing this, the landlady warned. Then put your sword away quickly and let your husband inside. It's the middle of the night. Don't let the neighbors laugh at us. He walked up, reaching out with forced politeness. But his words carried a threatening undertone. You don't want to get kicked out, do you? With that, he unhesitatingly wrapped an arm around her slim waist and lied without blinking. I'm so sorry for the trouble, ma'am. My wife has a bit of a temper, but I'm used to it. I'll make sure she behaves herself from now on. Alice, caught off guard by his intimacy, could only force out a few awkward laughs. Ha ha ha! The landlady, satisfied that the couple had made up, smiled. That's more like it. As the saying goes, a day of marriage brings 100 days of kindness. Don't let a small disagreement ruin your affection. Alice could only laugh awkwardly, while under the table she kept stomping on his foot. The landlady added, Oh, and by the way, Miss Alice, you might as well pay this month's rent now. Alice, feeling exhausted, slowly trudged into the house. Fine, I'll go get the money. Taking advantage of Alice's absence, the landlady put in a good word for her. Alice may have a temper, but she's a good girl. You should treat her well. She looked so pitiful when she first came here dragging her luggage. Hearing something he never knew before, a flicker of sympathy crossed Merlin's face. This Alice. Is her life really that hard? Sensing his pity, the landlady handed him a key and said, That's right. If you hadn't shown up, I don't know. In the future, if you ever get kicked out, use this key to get back inside. He reached out and promised, Don't worry, I'll take good care of her. In the end, everyone went home. Outside, the rain continued to fall, while inside, Merlin was delighted to have secured a place to stay. His eyes flicked behind him as he said, Hey, Alice, I have a small suggestion. It's inappropriate for you to be like this. You should really put on your magic corset. No sooner had he finished, a sword came flying toward him. She brandished it right at his face, ready to fight to the death. Merlin, you heaven-forsaken bastard, I am not done with you today! He chuckled, catching the tip of the blade with his hand. Merlin's face remained calm. Miss Alice, have you forgotten? I'm your husband now, brandishing a sword at me. Are you trying to become a widow? She blushed with shame, stuttering incessantly. Husband? What are you shameless jerk? Merlin continued, thick-skinned. Once I really get going, this house will be reduced to rubble. I can just dust myself off and leave, but you'll have to pay for the damages. It's best you think carefully before drawing your sword on me again. Alice, having had her weakness exposed, could only curse silently. That hateful Merlin. One day I will beat you up so hard you won't even know how to fight back. Be a good girl, he teased. We've been acting for 5 years now. So what exactly do you want? Don't tell me you're just looking for a free place to stay? He sat down comfortably on the soft cushion and tried to reassure her. Don't get so worked up. I've already thought of a plan that's good for both of us. Once you hear it, you definitely won't want to kick me out. Alice knew well she couldn't easily refuse. Don't tell me. You're not planning to leave, are you? Well, let's hear it then. Merlin reached out to grab a banana from the table and finally laid out his proposal. My dear Miss Alice, how about we rent this place together? She was a bit uncertain. Rent it together? He confirmed, That's right. Your life is pretty tight, isn't it? Rent is a big expense. Wouldn't it be much lighter if someone shared the cost? Alice, though not entirely rejecting the idea, didn't have enough of a reason to accept his offer yet. What you say makes sense, but why should I live with you? We're enemies. He remained calm. That's all history from who knows when. It's high time we laid our cards on the table, isn't it? Hearing that, Alice didn't feel very comfortable, but she weighed it carefully. I can't really lay my cards on the table with him, but he isn't wrong. I could save quite a bit of money each month. Thinking it over, she agreed. Fine. Renting together, huh? I guess it's not impossible. But you only get to sleep on the sofa. Also, pay the rent right now. She held out her hand, waiting for the money. Without answering, he tossed the banana peel onto her hand. His expression suddenly darkened. I'll pay her the money, and she'll start working on that SSS rank commission right away. To me, that's all small change. By then, I'll be filthy rich without even trying. He arrogantly flaunted his right hand, and while waving several tickets with supreme confidence, he added, "These are my tickets to the top of the world." Alice stood to the side, looking at him as if he were a complete idiot. Here we go again. The next morning, sunlight bathed the town. A group of people gathered around a small table, watching the match broadcast on a crystal ball, shouting nonstop. "Come on, Edward! Why are you running so slow today?" Over there, Merlin and his crew were betting and screaming their lungs out. "I've bet everything on you! Go! Charge!" Rukia stood outside the window, arms crossed, watching them, with a single deep red rose beside her. She looked toward Merlin, wondering to herself why Zaza would bring this guy here. Is this guy even from the Adventurers Guild? He isn't some secret love child, is he? She watched him tear at his hair, having just lost all his money. Then she thought about the place currently being renovated to cover the damage to the streets from yesterday, which the geezer had generously paid for in full. It's really impossible to figure out what changed that guy. Holding a rose with extreme reverence, he offered it to the person in front of him. "Beautiful Miss Alice, please accept this rose." Arnold held the bouquet, sweet-talking her. "Before your beautiful face, even the most gorgeous flower loses its luster." But these sappy, flattering lines couldn't move anyone. Alice tried to muster a friendly smile that ended up looking crooked. No need, really." Two strangers standing far away saw the scene and couldn't help but sigh. Is Arnold at it again? Is he really still obsessed with Alice? Hobbs stepped closer to advise him. "Arnold, don't waste your effort." He pointed to Merlin, who was mourning the loss of every penny he had. "That guy, Merlin. This blondie has already taken your spot. He's already successfully conquered your dream girl." It was as if he had just heard earth-shattering news. "What?" Arnold was so shocked that the rose petals began to fall from his hand. Alice, standing behind, laughed helplessly and denied it. That's not it." He trembled, clenching his fists, his voice full of resentment. "You! Where did a guy like you crawl out from? What is this about you and Miss Alice?" Before he could give him a chance to answer, Arnold drew his sword and pointed it right at him. "I get it now. You must have threatened Miss Alice." Then he declared proudly, "I, Arnold, eldest son of the Sting family, challenge you to a duel right here and now." Merlin didn't care much for him. "A duel with you? That seems unnecessary, doesn't it? Alice and I aren't even a thing." Hobbs placed a hand on Merlin's shoulder, teasing him. "But you two are already living together. How can you say you aren't a thing?" From one surprise to the next, Arnold's eyes widened in sheer disbelief. "What? You and Miss Alice are living together?" He repeated, "Living together?" At that moment, his expression was like someone who had just been struck by lightning. His soul practically left his body. He couldn't say another word. Alice darted over, rushing to deny it. We aren't, Hobbs. Quit spouting nonsense. It was a trespassing incident yesterday." Arnold still clung to hope, trying to persuade her. "You need to judge a man's appeal by more than just brute force. Look at his capabilities, too. Just so Miss Alice can have a change of heart and see my shining qualities." Alice was beyond helpless. "I already said it. It's not like that." Perhaps her denial went unnoticed by everyone. He was determined. "This is a commission from Denbyside just announced recently. Any adventurer in the Wells region can participate. How about we use this to settle the duel?" He held the paper high so everyone could clearly see the information written on it. A-rank commission. Large amounts of undead have appeared in Denbyside and need urgent disposal, requesting adventurers from gold rank and below to form a party. Gold bounty ranging from 1,000 to 5,000 gold coins. He challenged him directly. "What do you say? Let's use this commission to compare our skills and prove once and for all who is worthy of being Miss Alice's man." Alice felt like she was being treated as invisible. "What about my opinion?" Arnold held the commission paper in front of everyone. "Well, Merlin, let's use our true strength to see who is worthy of being Miss Alice's man." Alice looked at the two of them, puzzled. "Rukia, what are they talking about?" Rukia was excited. "That? It's a commission from Denbyside that just started recruiting." She explained, "I heard some tomb raiders snuck into the tomb grounds and triggered a trap. After that, undead creatures started appearing non-stop, attacking the villages. The situation is critical, and the garrison troops aren't enough." Arnold bowed to her. "Miss Alice, to be honest, for this commission, I have spent a large sum of money to hire a saint-rank powerhouse. Getting the full reward will be as easy as pie. If you are willing to join my party, I would be absolutely honored. Alice was curious. A saint rank powerhouse? Who is it? I described him. It is Lord Cloud. He just joined our guild yesterday. I saw that he was interested in the undead at Denby side, so I paid him to form a party with me. What do you think, Miss Alice? She pondered. If a saint rank is there, it's a sure win. It wouldn't be a loss. Alice happily agreed. If that's the case, let's team up together. Arnold was thrilled. Rukia, hurry and stamp it for me. She smiled. All right, all right. So, Lady Alice, do you think having a St. Tia powerhouse there guarantees a win? Alice chuckled and agreed. Perhaps. Why don't we team up then? Andoth exclaimed excitedly. Rukia, quick, stamp the papers for me. She smiled and replied, all right, all right. The application form was stamped and verified by the Wrexham Guild. He stroked his hair and smirked smugly. Ha ha ha. And then Arnold turned around and taunted, we're one step ahead of you. Merlin thought, a man-to-man duel has begun. You'll soon realize that with enough money, you really can do whatever you want. He focused entirely on the request form, completely ignoring her. Lady Alice, wait for me. He placed the paper on the table. Lady Rukia, I want to take this request as well. Rukia panicked. Forming a party requires at least 2 people. Merlin was confused. Can't I do it alone? She refused. I'm sorry, Merlin. The regulations are strict. A thoughtful look appeared on his face. Merlin suddenly dragged a drunk Hobbs over. Hick! He pointed at him. He'll do. Rukia was a bit hesitant. I'm afraid that... The old man stepped forward and said to Rukia, just let them go. She tilted her head. But... The old man replied calmly, it's fine. Just let them go. Merlin led Hobbs away, not forgetting to wave goodbye. Thanks, Guildmaster. Meanwhile, Alice's group had already departed. Arnold introduced them. Cloud, this is Lady Alice from the Golden Adventurer Party. From now on, we're friends and a team. We'll work together and coordinate to become the #1 adventurer party. Cloud's response stunned them both. Forget about coordination and teamwork. Leave the strong enemies to me. You guys just hang back and clear out the small fries. Arnold broke the awkward tension. Haha, Cloud, are you worried about our safety? We'll be very careful. Maybe we can even help you a little bit. A look of contempt flashed in his eyes. Who gave you the illusion that you could help me? I'll say this up front. If you drag me down, I won't hesitate to abandon you. Alice watched silently. They were supposed to be teammates, yet he had this attitude. A saint rank is really all that? She wondered. It was as if she suddenly realized that seeing Merlin take down one enemy after another so easily had raised her own standards without her even noticing. Alice felt a bit of regret. If I had known, I should have just acted on my own. I wonder if that guy Merlin has found a party yet? At that moment, Merlin was still standing outside the guild hall. How annoying. Where am I supposed to find a carriage? He smiled deviously. Got it. I'll just borrow Alice's stuff. Merlin called out to Hobbs. Let's go! Hobbs was still deep in his drunken stupor. Oh, the next morning the two set off. Hobbs still couldn't believe what was happening. I was driving the carriage while Merlin lay in the back. Hobbs tilted his head and said, Hey, little Merlin, did I really agree to go to Denbasai? Merlin nonchalantly made up a lie. That's right. Didn't you see the request document? It even had Lady Rukia's stamp on it. You were making such a scene demanding to go, I couldn't talk you out of it. He clutched his forehead in agony. Oh my God, little Merlin, we should just turn back right now. Hobbs tried to persuade him. Before long, the royal palace will send strong warriors to deal with this. Let's not go looking for our own deaths. Merlin sat up. It's not that bad, right? Hobbs continued to explain. Listen to me, brother. Official request notices might have big rewards, but that money isn't easy to get. The necromancer outbreak, even the garrison couldn't handle it. So you can see there are really a lot of them. Black Iron adventurers like us are just bait at best. Just to shift the attention of those undead for a moment. Merlin pointed at himself. What are you afraid of? With me here, don't worry, just hide behind me and you'll be fine. I became even more bewildered. Is this kid a total idiot? Merlin was thrilled. Ha ha ha! Hobbs held his head in fear. Merlin, how do you expect me to trust you? I'm just a low-level fire mage and you're just a kid who knows a few fancy tricks. What kind of synergy do you think we have? Merlin suddenly pointed ahead. Alice's group is up ahead. We can follow them, get some easy experience, and pick up 1,000 gold coins. Isn't that great? Hobbs seemed convinced. That makes sense. Once we get there, we'll just hack a couple of small monsters and call it a day. Besides, there's a saint-rank adventurer there anyway. It shouldn't be too dangerous. Suddenly, the sound of approaching hooves filled the air. They saw a cavalry unit approaching, led by Kaio, wearing armor and riding a golden horse. Hobbs was drinking water. People from the Rose Grand Duke's estate? Merlin was suspicious. Who are they? He commented. That carriage behind the Whale's Lord. This procession is quite something. The person inside must be family. Kaio rode closer to their carriage and spoke up. Hey, do you two know a faster route to Denbisai? Hobbs gave directions, Sir Knight. If you want to save time, there's a small path on Mount Morosa ahead, but it's a bit narrow. Your carriage in the back might not be able to get through. After that, it's a short walk to the destination. Kaio looked skeptical. Are you kidding me? He scratched his head awkwardly. If that doesn't work, you could go south. But in the autumn, the rhinoceros herd migrates that way, and running into them would be a bit troublesome. So the fastest way is the walking path I just mentioned. He looked stern. Do you have any idea who is in that carriage? How could you lower yourself to walk on such a muddy road? Hobbs muttered angrily. Walking 2 steps is nothing, but this isn't exactly a path. Kaio swung his whip and shouted, What did you say? Are you cursing our lord for being in poor health? The whip strike was blocked just in time. Merlin stood in front of Hobbs and yanked the whip hard. Seiho's face turned livid. Let go of my whip! Do you want to suffer the consequences too? He still gripped it tight. Merlin suddenly pulled the whip taut. The horse, caught off balance by the force, neighed in alarm. Both Kaio and the horse were sent sprawling to the ground. Merlin stood over them, looking down. What's with that attitude, little brother? We were kindly showing you a faster route. If you're not going to be grateful, the least you could do is be polite. Instead, you put on this rotten noble act. It's pathetic. He gritted his teeth. Hobbs whispered, trembling. Merlin, this isn't good. They're people of the Rose Grand Duke. I explained. He is the most influential person in the entire Wells region. Although they answer to the royal family, every regional commander acts like a local emperor. Merlin replied, I don't care if he's a radish lord or a cabbage lord. If someone crosses you, you have to hit back. Do you understand? Hobbs stammered, Isn't that the demon tribe's creed? If you said that in front of the clergy, you'd be burned at the stake. Kaio struggled to stand up, looking disheveled. You two black iron adventurers, you have some nerve. Since I became a Rose Knight, this is the first time I've suffered such humiliation. I must duel both of you. Merlin provoked him. Bring it on. Let's have a real fight. A voice rang out, cutting through the imminent brawl. Stop! Kaio, that person stepped out of the carriage. As soon as Cecilia appeared, she spoke. Kaio, has the glory of the Rose Knights really fallen this low? Demanding a duel with the weak? You can actually say that out loud? He knelt respectfully on one knee. My apologies, Lady Cecilia. It's just that they insulted you. Oh? She remained indifferent. And so what? These two commoners have never met me. Why blame them? Cecilia assessed them. Are you saying that just because 2 ants blocked your path, you're not going to go forward anymore? She signaled a desire for peace. My subordinate has disturbed you two. I apologize on his behalf. Merlin triumphantly demanded. That didn't show a shred of sincerity. Can you even call that an apology? Hobbs tried to stop him. Hey Merlin, what are you doing? Don't talk nonsense. Kaio, agitated, rushed over with his sword. What are you saying to Miss Cecilia? Cecilia held out her staff to block him. That's enough. He was confused, but they turned to leave. Indeed, there is no need to waste time being angry with low-level black iron trash. Time is short. Let's go. Kaio hurriedly complied. Yes, at your command. He glared at the two of them. Humph! Merlin wore an expression of smug satisfaction, while Hobbs couldn't stop shaking with fear. He watched the group quickly depart. Merlin laughed, amused. Why is it that the next one is always more annoying than the last? Better pray you don't run into me again. Ha ha! The carriage rolled down the tree-lined dirt road. The wheels clattered rhythmically. Anon talked miserably about his past. My family was very large. When I was young, I got lost every single day. I've never had to touch money in my life. I have no interest in money. I'm sick of this life where everything is just handed to me on a silver platter. He continued, excited and full of expectation. So, Miss Alice, you understand what I mean, right? She was slightly thoughtful. Poverty has limited my imagination. He placed a hand over his heart. filled with emotion. "It's you, Miss Alice, who has rekindled my hope for life." Anon recalled a time from the past. Back then, he had gone to Elgin City to visit his uncle on behalf of his father. While sitting in the carriage, he was suddenly struck by an astonishing sight: a petite girl holding a sword, bravely fighting a monster. That was 6 months before Alice came to Elgin City to help deal with the giant beast that was ravaging the fields. In that moment, admiration and love began to bloom. In her, he saw a heroic figure. I understood what they meant by fated. From that moment on, Anon began to pursue her. On the road, a stranger suddenly jumped out to propose marriage, causing Alice to reject him on the spot. Later, Anon joined the guild and began his relentless pursuit of Alice. He placed his hand on his heart, full of sincerity. It was heaven's arrangement that we experienced the legendary swordmaster of Elgin together and work together. Now all that's missing is for Miss Alice to help me with one thing. Help me fall in love with you a little faster. She refused immediately. "I can't help you with that," a voice suddenly sounded, cutting between the two. "May I ask a question?" Klaus asked with a look of doubt. "Who exactly is this legendary swordmaster of Elgin?" Anon was surprised. "Huh? Clarence, you don't know? Unless you've been practicing in the deep mountains." "And never came out?" He didn't answer and didn't press further, just said indifferently, "Forget it. I always hear people talking about how strong this swordmaster is." Mentioning her crush made Alice excited. "Always hiding away to practice, huh? No wonder you're so out of the loop. You don't even know my man!" Anon recounted the feats of the great swordmaster of Elgin. The red-haired brothers were famous saint-level pirates. Every one of their subordinates was a talented warrior. They wreaked havoc on the sea for years, unstoppable. They were a group that even the 7 kings couldn't handle. And yet, they were killed in one strike by the swordmaster of Elgin, Klaus commented calmly. "Killing 2 saint levels in 1 second, that's nothing, is it?" This evaluation made Alice and Anon opened their eyes wide in extreme shock. Klaus analyzed, "Clearly, even among Saint Levels, there are differences in strength. Fraud exists. Miss Alice, you are high level. To you, Saint Level naturally seems very strong because you aren't fighting on that level. But in the eyes of us Saint Levels, those pirates were nothing. This is the difference between tiers." He clenched his fists, expressing dissatisfaction. "Nowadays, it's just not the same anymore. True powerhouses are becoming fewer and fewer. For the public to pin their hopes on someone whose identity isn't even known, it really just shows the incompetence of the 7 kings." Alice thought uncomfortably. The old man's tone is normally, "What on earth is going on here?" Andoth gave an awkward laugh, trying to push back. "If the great swordsman Elgin isn't worthy of being called a hero, then tell me, who in the kingdom actually has the right to that title?" Claude replied with total confidence. "Obviously. Have you ever heard of the 4 heroes of the former kingdom?" This title made Alice ponder for a moment. Andoth stuttered. The 4 heroes?" Claude began to introduce them. The dragon-riding bandit, Colonna, who once assassinated 7 Saint Tier masters of the Empire in a single night. No one targeted by her has ever escaped her dagger. Then there are the twin sword saints, Joe and Joey. Their secret techniques are arguably the most powerful weapons in the Empire. The King of Giants, known for his absolute defense, died at the hands of those 2 brothers. And finally, the storm warrior Bernard, a human meat grinder on the battlefield. He fought a Saint-Tier dragon all by himself and has participated in countless campaigns. He is the leader of the heroes. Let me be blunt. There isn't a single opponent he couldn't defeat, Claude declared. He asserted, "Only those 4 deserve the title of the strongest. Anyone else is just showing off in front of the masters." Andoth asked curiously, "Mr. Claude, who exactly are these people?" Alice explained solemnly. "They were the founding heroes of the former kingdom, honored with the title of the 4 great heroes." I was shocked. Founding heroes? Weren't they from over 400 years ago?